bold journalism.
But Drew Hernandez is a strong-minded individual.
Exposing lawlessness.
Drew Hernandez, who is ideological.
Finding the truth.
And use the word Antifa.
This is what they do.
Battling
They're
mainstream
liars. The woke mob, all they can do is lie.
These are the front lines.
Welcome to TPUSA Live. My name is Drew Hernandez, host of Frontlines. Here's what we've got coming up on the live stream today. Here on Frontlines, we're headed to the southern border. Savanah Hernandez has been getting footage and talking to law enforcement as they brace for a tidal wave of migrants expected to flood the southern border in just a matter of weeks. Then after that, we'll send it over to the couch for TPUSA Live with guest host Connor Clegg, and they're talking all about how the media has now turned its back on President Joe Biden. You don't want to miss Human Events Daily with Jack Posobiec today. He's talking all about how the U.S. is admitting to spreading disinformation about Russian chemical weapons. Then on the Spillover, Alex Clark speaks with a woman who gave up her Amish community and never looked back. And if you didn't get enough of Alex during the Spillover, check out today's episode of Politics. Something wicked may be happening in Hollywood. We already knew that. But don't forget, Frontlines is now available on Apple Podcast and Spotify. Do not forget to subscribe, leave a 5-star review. Do it right now to support the show. My name is Drew Hernandez, and you are now on the front lines. All right, America, the southern border is bracing for impact. We've already been seeing a wave, a tsunami, an invasion at the southern border that's been taking place since this administration has taken power, has gone into office. Millions of people have poured into this country, and it's not a good look, and it's going to get worse over the summer with this administration looking to cancel and do away with Title 42, which is going to make it for people to claim asylum at the southern border. They will form more apparent families and claim that they're asylum seekers. And we're going to see an even bigger wave of illegal immigration at the southern border. Operation Lone Star, this is from the office of the Texas Governor Greg Abbott. Operation Lone Star mission expands as President Biden ends Title 42 expulsions. Governor Greg Abbott, the Texas Department of Public Safety, and the Texas National Guard are continuing to work to secure the border, stop the smuggling of drugs, weapons, and people into Texas, and prevent, detect, and literally put a stop to transnational criminal behavior between ports of entry in response to the federal government's unwillingness to address the border crisis. Operation Lone Star continues to fill the dangerous gaps left by the President Biden administration's refusal to secure the border. Every individual who is apprehended or arrested and every ounce of drugs seized would have otherwise made their way into communities across Texas and the nation due to President Biden's open border policy. Governor Abbott announced on Wednesday aggressive actions by the state of Texas to secure the border in wake of President Biden's decision to end Title 42 expulsions. Take a look.
I hereby direct the Texas Division of Emergency Management to begin coordinating the transportation of illegal aliens to Washington, D.C. The first location will be the steps of the United States Capitol. Texans have the backbone and the will to secure a border, two things that Joe Biden does not have.
Some call it a publicity stunt. We'll see what actually takes place, but this administration needs to be held accountable. It goes on to say Governor Abbott, Greg Abbott, also announced additional strategies being deployed immediately to secure the border. DPS and the Texas Military Department are preparing additional boat blockades, deploying razor wire at low water crossings and high traffic areas, and installing container blockades to stem the flow of illegal crossings. Additionally, all DPS troopers and specially trained Texas National Guard soldiers will be given riot gear in case of violence among caravans of migrants and illegal immigration. Well, the great Savanah Hernandez, a reporter with Truth Social, has been down there these past couple days at the Texas southern border. Take a look at one of these clips she's got.
It's overwhelming, the number of people crossing. People crossing during the day, during the evenings that are getting through. They're getting into neighborhoods, and people are scared. People are scared. They don't know what to do. They call 911, and we're the ones that get the call. In the evenings, the issue we're having is we have people crossing clandestinely that do not want to turn themselves, that they don't not want to be caught. And they're crossing over, they're getting into neighborhoods, they're breaking into homes, they're getting into unoccupied residences, they're breaking into vehicles, and people are calling us, neighbors are calling us. Just last night, we had a group of 40 individuals that just a person called that lived in the neighborhood. Hey, I've got 40 people in my front yard. And a deputy showed up and everybody took off running. Same time, just a side note, while this was going on, there was another call for service that came in of a hostage situation, nothing having to do with undocumented traffic, but just somebody that had a hostage at gunpoint. So we have our resources tied up over here chasing undocumented subjects, and then we have other emergencies going on at the same time, so it never stops.
Joining me now is Truth Social reporter Savanah Hernandez that has been on the ground at the Texas southern border. Savanah, what have you been seeing down there? The footage is amazing. What's the vibe? What's the mood? It looks like law enforcement knows. Border Patrol, they know what's coming. What have you been seeing? What have you been hearing?
Thanks for having me on, Drew. It was a pretty insane week. We started off in Eagle Pass, and I actually got to watch the entire process of illegal immigrants actually crossing the Rio Grande from Mexico into Texas, and then them going to NGOs and then being taken to bus stations and taken throughout America. So I really got to watch, from point A to point B, how this whole entire process works. And Eagle Pass, we were talking to some of the National Guard that were deployed there, and they were telling us the same exact thing as the deputy constable that you just heard, that they're extremely overwhelmed, that they're overrun, that they're already at this point now, and Title 42 hasn't even been revoked yet. A lot of people aren't aware of how dangerous the border really is. Just to give you guys an example, the National Guardsmen that I talked to said that the reason why they were a bit apprehensive to even have reporters at the border is because the cartel members would find videos of these National Guardsmen on the American side. They were figuring out their phone numbers, and they're sending them pictures of dead bodies along with death threats, saying they're going to kill our military members and people working at the border. So that's what's currently going on right now. One of the most shocking things that I did see as well is we drove into Eagle Pass. We were there for about 20 minutes, and I watched a group of around 6 or 7 Cuban illegal immigrants cross the Rio Grande River and get into America. They immediately got on their knees. They started praying. They started thanking God. They were hugging each other. They were celebrating. And to be quite honest with you, Drew, just as an American citizen myself, it was shocking to watch. It's jarring to watch people just cross our border, break our laws, celebrate it, and wait for Border Patrol to come pick them up so then an NGO group can come in, give them a free cell phone and a bus ticket so they can be shipped throughout the U.S.
Savanah, I want you to explain to the people, because your footage is amazing. We've seen this. It's systemic, right? There is a plan. There is an agenda. You could clearly see it. Explain to us the process, right? You see them come over the border. Explain that process, all the way from them crossing the Border Patrol taking them in, and then where do they go from there? Explain that entire process that you saw.
Of course. So I'm actually going to go one step before they even cross, because a lot of people aren't aware that the cartels are making millions every single day. And how are they making millions every single day? Because of good old President Joe Biden, who is allowing them to cross over via our open borders policy that we essentially have in place right now. So the cartels are making money by transporting these illegal immigrants to the border. Then they cross over the Rio Grande. Now that current is extremely strong. As you can see in this video, there are children in tow. Not all of them make it. And National Guard and Border Patrol told me horror stories of how they have watched children drown, how they have watched parents just lose their child to that current. So if they're lucky enough to make it over, then Border Patrol comes and takes them. They process them in one of our facilities. Many of these people have criminal records, which is why they're giving the government is providing them these free phones to track them. Granted, these immigrants can decide to throw that phone away so they aren't tracked any longer. But once they get processed, a non-governmental organization like we saw in Brownsville, Texas, will then take over and give these people supplies, food, phones, clothes. As you can see in this video, you have people walking with these big bags of supplies. They're being taken to the bus station in Brownsville, and then they're going and buying tickets. The migrants that we talked to, some of them said that they received their cell phones along the way. Others said that they received them from this NGO, and then they're dispersed throughout the U.S. Another interesting thing that I saw, Drew, is in McAllen. I was trying to fly back home, and I was looking at a plane ticket for $190. I refreshed the page, and in 10 seconds, the plane ticket went up $300. I'd never seen anything like it. I was talking to my friend Juan, who lives at the border, and he said that so many NGOs are buying plane tickets for these illegal immigrants to be flown throughout the country that it drives the prices of the plane tickets up exponentially. I've never seen anything like it. The tickets were selling out like hotcakes. So that's what we're seeing at the border right now.
Yeah, and it's all coordinated. That's what I want the viewers to understand. This entire process is coordinated. The federal government is definitely involved. It's well funded, and they put these people on airplanes and they send them to wherever they claim to have family. There are probably cartels waiting for them to give them a job in construction or gardening, God knows what. That's how this works. But Savanah, were you able to talk to, I don't know, any locals or people that are kind of like just around the area that, I mean, these people have been going through hell down there. Even that law enforcement man that you talked to was mentioning that it's like an invasion down here. People's backyards, their ranches, people are just jumping over the fence. They're crossing through their backyards. Have you talked to anybody down there that's experiencing this stuff?
Unfortunately, I wasn't able to talk to any locals on the ground, which is something I did want to do because those are the stories that are unheard right now. But again, from the local official who does work in law enforcement and whose job is to protect the city of Eagle Pass and these various border cities and towns, they're saying that the crime is going up exponentially and that people are scared. Another thing that he said too, in another clip that I put out, is that these stores in Eagle Pass and these various border towns are selling out of food even faster than your average store would, because they have thousands of people coming across the border every single day. Eagle Pass, for example, population of 30,000 people. They have upwards of 75 to 100 people crossing every single hour. Those people need food. They need new clothes. They're given money, like you said, Drew, from these NGOs, which are getting federal grants from the Biden administration to provide them these supplies. Remember that this is our taxpayer money that's supposed to be going to American people who are experiencing homelessness or food shortages or, any type of hardship. That's supposed to be going to American citizens, but instead it's going to these illegal immigrants who are coming in, taking over, and basically, coming into the U.S. and changing our demographics.
Savanah, I also want you to speak on this too, is when you're down there at the border, what does it look like with the Border Patrol themselves? Are they outnumbered down there? Do they have enough people down there? Or are there just way too many people to control? The cartels know what they're doing. What was your experience down there watching that unfold? Are the Border Patrol outnumbered? Are there just way too many people down there?
100%, which is why we're currently watching National Guard conduct those drills when Title 42 gets revoked. Border Patrol extremely overwhelmed right now, extremely short-staffed. I'm even hearing reports from sources that Border Patrol is just straight up quitting their jobs because the Biden administration has their hands tied. National Guard was telling me, we're getting these death threats. Our job is to observe and report. We're not allowed to deter people from coming across the border. And it's horrifying watching these people drown in the river, come across, get kidnapped by the cartel. The National Guard, again, off record, told us a story about this group of women and children who actually were about to make it across the border. The cartel came in and kidnapped them and is keeping them in a stash house. And for many that aren't aware, what ends up happening with these migrants is the cartel takes advantage of them, and they'll either beat the men, and then they will sexually assault the women and children, which is horrible to see. And then they'll keep them hostage and say, you need to pay us this amount of money or we're going to take your life. So that's what these people are also experiencing along the way. And again, going back to Border Patrol, they're completely overwhelmed. Yesterday, we saw a single female Border Patrol member, patrolling on her own. Usually there's about 2 people per vehicle that we saw. She was all alone in the middle of the night on the border in Texas. So they're extremely short-staffed.
And also, Savanah, I'm curious too, when you're down there, when you look at the demographics, are you seeing more men down there or are you seeing more women? I mean, they pose as families, but how's that looking, these people that are coming over? Are you seeing more men than women? What's it looking like when you're down there right now?
We're seeing a lot more men, and a lot of people think too, these are just people coming in from Mexico. No, we met a man from Ghana. We met people from Argentina, from Cuba. They're coming from all over the world. And yes, majority of them are men, and they're very well-fed men in brand new clothes. There was a couple of men that got picked up where my sources were telling me, hey, those actually look like they could be potential cartel members just coming over and, scoping out the scene. So we had to be really careful on the border about who we were talking to, who we were around, because the cartel has a lot of power down there. And it's very sad to see that all of our focus has been on the border in Ukraine. Meanwhile, our own border is being completely invaded.
Absolutely. Moving forward, now that you've been down there, Savanah, Title 42, we're bracing for impact. It's coming.
Yeah.
It's going to be a surge. What are you anticipating when this happens at the end of May?
May 23rd, I will be back down on the border on the ground because, again, talking to several sources, talking to a couple of my friends who cover the border exclusively, they were saying that we are about to see some historic numbers, historic border crossings, Border Patrol bracing for impact. They're already overwhelmed. They don't know what they're going to do. We have Greg Abbott even coming in and, like we played at the beginning of this segment, saying he's going to bus these illegal immigrants to Washington, D.C. Maybe that will get the message across to the Biden administration. I highly doubt it. But the wave of people coming over is going to be incredible. We actually had Jorge Ventura with the Daily Caller. He went over to the Mexico side, and there are immigrants over there who were saying, yeah, we already got expelled from the U.S., so we're just going to wait until May, and then we're going to go back over because we won't be able to be expelled as easily.
Well, here it is. Replace migration. This is the globalist agenda that we are watching unfold right before our very eyes. We all know the end game. We know the end goal. Savanah, amazing work. Please stay safe out there. The last thing I need is some story, some headline out there of you getting stuffed in a truck and you're never seen ever again. Where can people follow you?
Hopefully that doesn't happen.
We'll pray. Where can people follow you and continue to track your great work?
Follow me on Instagram at Sav with one N. I am posting all of my footage there. Also, my Truth Social account is Sav Says, and I have all my footage on Rumble, Sav Says as well. So go check all that out. Go share the footage. Go show people what is going on at our southern border.
Perfect. Thank you for joining me, Savanah.
Thanks, Drew.
Awesome. There she goes. You see, America, this is the agenda that you're watching. This is the agenda that's been unfolding. This is nothing new, but it's continuing, and you're watching this continue, and you're watching this unfold in real time at the southern border. Everyone that thought that globalism was a conspiracy theory, everyone that thought that replaced migration was a conspiracy theory, everyone that thought that, America could never be in a place where we have open borders. These people have been preaching for this. They've been advocating for this, saying that no borders, no wall, no USA at all. They want a globalist world. That's why they want to remove the borders. That's why they want it completely open, this utopian world that they claim is going to come, and they just pour in people from the third world so that they can control them. These people are going to be easily controlled. These are people that know that the current federal government is going to feed them, is going to house them, is going to provide for them, and be their all in all. That is why they're importing millions of desperate people into this country. Does that make sense to you? They don't want Americans that stand for freedom. They don't want human beings that are autonomous within themselves, that know the Constitution, that know what liberty is, that know just exactly what it means to be a freedom-loving individual in this country. No, they want a globalist totalitarian regime where you have populations that can be controlled very easily. And the way that you do that is you take desperate people by the masses and you tell those desperate people that they are the ones that they can trust to feed them, provide for them, protect them, and be their all in all. And that is exactly what is taking place. And by the way, this is happening directly to the Hispanic community here in the United States of America. And these politicians, these global elites, are taking advantage of desperate Latino people coming from these third world countries because they want to control them. They've already decimated the black community. They've already put the black community into a position where they will be dependent and desperate upon them because they have told them that they're desperate people that could do nothing within themselves. And now these politicians in this country are shifting their attention to the Hispanic community because they know that the largest non-white voting bloc in the United States of America are not black people, it's not Asian people, it's Hispanics, it's Latinos. And this is why this push is now being made to import millions of Latinos and Hispanics into the United States of America because these people know what they're doing, and I hope you do too. This is an agenda. It's not happening by accident. It's happening on purpose. Your backyard is wide open at the southern border, and not only are desperate people coming in, dangerous people are coming in with dangerous criminal records. Murderers, rapists, the list goes on. This is nothing new. It just got politicized because President Trump decided to call it out in 2015 and 2016. So wake up. It's taking place. And speaking of globalism, I don't need to tell you. I know you're feeling it. Inflation is out of control, and we're seeing it more than ever in the grocery store. If you're looking to save money without sacrificing quality, then you need to check out Good Ranchers. Their prices on 100% American meat have remained affordable, and their quality beats the store every single time. Right now, you can save money, get steakhouse quality meat, and donate $50 to TPUSA by visiting goodranchers.com/TPUSA. With your purchase, you can donate $50 to Turning Point USA. Make your donation and get great quality meat today. Go to www.goodranchers.com/TPUSA to combat inflation with fair-priced American meat delivered by Good Ranchers today. The food shortages are coming. You might as well do it now. All right, America, let's continue. Well, we got some breaking news here. We're going to continue to stay on this Disney thing because if we don't, the mainstream media doesn't want to talk about it. But we're going to talk about it because we have to. This has to be exposed. Disney CEO Bob Chapek issues groveling apology to company and LGBTQ activists. The Disney CEO is officially siding with child groomers. Breitbart reports that Disney CEO Bob Chapek issued a groveling apology to the LGBTQ activists in his company this week while promising to take urgent action to meet their needs. Speaking at the company's Reimagine Tomorrow Summit, Chapek began by pledging to be a better ally for the LGBTQ plus community and began to apologize. Take a look.
By now, I hope you've all read my most recent note, in which I pledged to be a better ally for the LGBTQ plus community, apologize for not being the ally that you needed me to be, and committed to ensuring that our company lives up to its values. I meant every word, and that's what we're here to talk about today. I understand that we've made mistakes and the pain that those mistakes have caused. And I know that our silence wasn't just about the bill in Florida, but about every time an individual or institution that should have stood up for this community did not. I and the leadership team are determined to use this moment as a catalyst for more meaningful and lasting change. I want to thank the LGBTQIA+ Advisory Council, their allies, and everyone else who has submitted ideas on how we can take action. I am convening a meeting with all my direct reports and representatives of the Advisory Council to discuss the thoughtful suggestions that have been made. But we know the moment requires urgency and words are not enough.
Well, there you have it, America. To every Disney fan out there, we could pretty much confidently say out in the open that Disney CEO Bob Chapek is now siding with child groomers because he is drawing his line in the sand. And he sits there in that video and he claims that, oh, we're going to stick to our values. We're going to stick to what we have in our company as our values. What, your traditional values? What were those? Allowing children to be groomed? Is that Disney's new MO? Well, apparently that they believe that a kindergarten teacher that identifies as a homosexual, K through 12, a kindergartner can have a sexual conversation with a little kid without the parents knowing. God knows what they're going to talk about, but here we are. This is where Disney has landed. This is where Disney has chosen. And there's going to be a backlash. You're going to continue to see this backlash. Parents are not going to stand for this. Americans are not going to stand for this. Mama bears and Papa bears are not going to stand for this. If there was ever a time to stand up and protect your children, if there was ever a time to literally push back on a massive corporation that is godless, evil, satanic, and depraved, it is literally now. Because these people are doubling, tripling, quadrupling down, and they are drawing a line in the sand openly. That's the top right there. You heard from Bob Chapek himself. He's not letting up. So neither should you, Mom. Neither should you, Dad. Neither should you, Grandma, Grandpa. This is your fight. These are your kids. You got to protect them. You got to stand up and speak up because these people are, listen, Disney has always had a problem with their employees getting involved in pedo rings and child sex trafficking rings. Hollywood has a plague inside of it of pedophilia and disgusting, disgusting practices. But now they're openly opposing laws that are meant, this is out in the open. This is not in the darkness. This is out in the open. Now they're openly opposing. They are openly opposing laws that are meant to protect children. Now you have Disney coming out in the open and opposing something that's meant to protect innocence. Is that the value that Bob Chapek is claiming that he has to get back to? Isn't it the opposite? Shouldn't he be protecting children? Now what's the value? Is his value letting children be groomed? It's interesting, right? Oh, right now, if a kindergarten teacher wants to talk about Jesus or religion in the classroom, all hell breaks loose and everybody loses their minds. Nobody can handle it. It's like the second coming of Adolf Hitler and everybody's heads explode, right? Everybody knows that's true. Give me a break. You know, if a kindergarten teacher started talking about Jesus to a little kid, the left would explode and lose their minds. Hate speech, hate speech. Don't shove your religion down my mouth. Oh, okay, right? Separation of church and state. But how is it that these child groomers and these pedophiles can openly have a conversation with a little kid about gay sex if they choose and hide it from the parents? Does that make sense to anybody? Because it doesn't make sense to me at all, in any way, shape, or form. Oh, somehow religion's the bad guy, but gay sex isn't. Really? You're seeing depravity, total depravity in your nation, in your culture, and it's not getting any better. Because they target these children with their hyper-sexualized agendas, and then they turn around and say, you know what? Not only are we going to do it, but we're not going to tell you about it, Mom. We're not going to tell you about it, Dad. We're going to keep it from you, and we're going to do it right behind your back. And now we're getting to the point where they're just going to openly do it. Say, screw you, Mom and Dad. You're a domestic terrorist if you don't let us talk to your little kindergartner about gay sex. Does anybody think that's normal? Whether it's gay sex, heterosexual sex, trans, whatever. Why in anybody's right mind, okay, does any teacher or adult want to have some kind of conversation with a kindergartner about their sex? That's for the parents. The parents are the ones that have these conversations. This is a sacred thing. This is a sacred thing that parents should be defending and speaking out against. Listen, I'll tell you this right now. All right? Let's just be honest. Cancel Disney. Cancel them now. Disney should be canceled. Oh, Drew, you sound like a leftist. I don't care. Because if there's anyone that deserves to be canceled, it's pedophiles and pedo simps. And that's exactly what Disney is doing right now. Anyone that comes out and says, oh, I'm not in support of cancel culture against pedophiles, sus much? Is there something wrong with you? You got something to hide, bro? Would you like to tell us? Because anybody that doesn't want to come out and speak out against something as serious as this probably has something to hide and has some serious issues. If there's anybody that deserves to be canceled right now, it is literally Disney, because they are drawing a line in the sand. And they're saying, we are not going to support a law that's meant to protect the innocence of children. No, we are going to oppose it. We're talking about a multi-billion-dollar corporation here that's worldwide. So you tell me who's the wrong one. You tell me who needs to be canceled. You tell me who needs to put a stop to what they're doing. You tell me who's the evil one in this situation. It's not me. I'm just showing you what they're doing. I'm just showing you what they're saying. These people do not care. And I encourage everyone out there to cancel your Disney Plus subscription. Watch Frontlines. There's the shameless plug. Because listen, we're right here, right now, and we are opposing this evil agenda, and you need to put a stop to it. Stop giving these people your money. Stop watching their movies. Stop funding them through the Disney parks. Stop funding them through any way, shape, or form. Whatever it is that Disney has control of, cancel it. Put an end to it. Even Disney cast members are coming out and saying the same thing, that this is the time to put an end to it. And I know a lot of people love Disney, but this is too far. You got to draw a line somewhere, bro. You got to draw a line somewhere, because if you don't, they're just going to continue, and they're not going to have any respect even for little kids. My name is Drew Hernandez. These are the Front Lines, and TPUSA Live starts right now.
Thanks, Drew. That's exactly right. Who needs Pluto the pedophile and Goofy the groomer when you got Drew Hernandez? I'm Connor Clegg. I'm obviously not John Root. I have eyebrows, but I'm filling in for him right now. And we're here at TPUSA HQ in beautiful, sunny, hot Phoenix, Arizona. Here's what we're covering today on TPUSA Live. First in the daily briefing, an Illinois church is fasting from whiteness in this Lenten season. And Hunter Biden, in the breaking news story, gets caught in a sexual furry scandal. Ooh, that sounds terrifying. What a pig. Our couch will next discuss the grooming of children that's happening at the creepiest place on earth, Disney, as lowlife pedophile indoctrinators try to fight against the Florida parental rights bill. Then we're going to discuss how President Biden's poll numbers are falling down faster than Speaker Pelosi's dentures. What an interesting script. In a segment that we call the rejection of the Biden regime. And after that, our panel is going to talk about the CCP. We're going to talk about TikTok, and we're going to talk about all the ways that the regime is attempting to undermine American civilization from within. And on a lighthearted note to end your week, we're going to take you through a tour of what's happening here at Turning Point HQ. And one last thing, stick around. This is going to be wild. I think TPUSA Live starts right now.
Authentic, unfiltered, grassroots content and conversation every weekday. Live from Phoenix, Arizona at the Turning Point USA headquarters. This is TPUSA Live.
Hey everybody, we're live. I'm Connor Clegg. Like I said, I'm not John Root. John will be back at some point. I think he's at a wedding right now. Good for him. I am the producer, one of the producers for the Charlie Kirk Show. They tell me I have a face for radio, but they stuck me on a camera. I don't know why. But I'm here with much more beautiful people. Lily Stanley, a member of the Turning Point HQ staff. She's on the media team. Total stud. Yes. Good to have you, Lily.
Thanks.
And then we have Paige Rue, a Turning Point USA contributor and host of Reloaded. How are you, Paige?
I'm almost offended that you had to look at the card to know that.
I had to make sure, it's a busy world over there in the Charlie Kirk building.
Hi, I'm great.
And then we have someone who I just met, but I dearly, dearly love. She's phenomenal. This is the founder and CEO of American Freedom Co., Sarah Hodge. We're going to discuss a lot of exciting things. How are you, Sarah? Welcome to Phoenix.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. Good. Honored to be with you.
It's great to have you. Well, we had some breaking news right before we started. We didn't really want to talk about Will Smith, but we're going to because I think it's important in a way. So Will Smith was just banned from the Oscars for 10 years. What are we going to do, Lily?
Wallow in despair.
Don't you mean willow in despair?
Oh my gosh, fire.
Sorry.
What?
You're hosting that.
Yeah, you did.
Seriously.
That was really good.
I mean, 10 years? I mean, okay.
A decade without Will Smith. What are we going to do?
Honestly, I'm kind of behind this. Like, out of all the things, I'm like, we cannot really care about what's going on in Will Smith's life. Like, it's not really my priority.
Right.
But it was a real hit.
You think?
Was it a real smack?
It was totally real.
Totally real.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't even really care very much. I just know that the viewership is going to hopefully continue to decline, and nobody will.
Or
watch
is that
it.
why they did it?
This
is probably like a week-old
That was
conversation.
obviously
But
why they were going to do it. But it's funny because the left and Will Smith's family and all these people came out like praising him for it, and now that he's being banned, I wonder if they're going to retract or if they're just going to wallow away.
Willow away.
Sorry.
Willow away.
No, I think it was real because you could feel so much brokenness and so much pain there. It was actually really sad. You can just see such a broken family. Not that it's my place to commentate on his family, but I will say we were having this conversation earlier. There was a time where we all thought Tiger Woods was never going to come back ever. The nation has re-embraced him, and so hopefully there'll be some healing and future there for Will and the Smiths and the Willow. And maybe there will be a comeback, but either way, you can just see like the brokenness of the family on full display, and that's what really breaks my heart.
That's the mom in you, for
Thank
sure.
you.
That's a good point. That's very true.
Yeah.
Look, I'm glad there are finally, some consequences and some repercussion for the black-on-black violence pandemic that we're seeing in America.
Right.
No, but you're right. Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith, they have what appears to be, from the outside looking in, a very troubled marriage. And I think that that's kind of a result of the degradation of culture that we're seeing, though. Whenever you don't value things like marriage and monogamy, right, and raising a steady, stable family, then you're going to end up with outbursts like that. That's the natural inclination. Chris Rock is just lucky that the rest of Jada's lovers didn't come and hit him on stage, So, anyway, on to something completely different. There is a church in Illinois. We broke the story yesterday on the Charlie Kirk Show, right? we're going to get there because it fires us up. It really does. We talked about this yesterday on the Charlie Kirk Show because Charlie's from Chicago, and there's a church there that is celebrating Lent. We're currently in the Lenten season right now. Is anyone Catholic? No? Okay.
I'm a Christian.
I mean, yeah, same family.
Yeah, it's all the same. Anyway, so the First United Presbyterian Church in Chicago decided that for Lent they're going to give up whiteness.
Right. Okay.
Right? And they put out these big banners and these big signs in the front park of their church, and they were very proudly proclaiming it. Then we covered it on the show yesterday, and the Turning Point USA wrote a live article about it.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, they're no longer very proud to proclaim it.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
And I don't know. I thought they were, all in on this thing, right? That's the entire idea of Lent, is you're supposed to you're supposed to stand strong in your suffering, and just like Jesus did in the 40 days and 40 nights in the desert, right?
Right.
Anyway, they didn't do that. They put out a press release. Do we have that press release so we can
Really?
put up on the screen? Right. So let's see. They yada, yada, yada. John Edgerton, the senior pastor, says this whole practice has been about love. It doesn't sound like it's about love to me. Does giving up whiteness sound like love to you?
No.
Sounds like racism.
What is happening?
I'd also, I want to point out, because we didn't even know this yesterday whenever we talked about it, John Edgerton, the pastor there, he's white.
I was just going to ask, is this entire church
Okay.
not white?
Yeah, I mean, they have to be. So first of all, this is
No,
very...
I mean, you'd be surprised. Maybe half of them are, or all of them are, and they're like,
Oh, for sure. I mean,
pastor is white.
Yeah, obviously, and the person who printed those materials are, I'm sure, as well. So I'm just confused. Literally, what does this look like? Like, because for Lent, you give things up, like literally, like if you're giving up alcohol, you're not drinking it. What are you painting yourself?
I think as you read into
I was just gonna
it,
say,
What,
are you
like,
dyeing
how do
your
you take
skin?
it off? Also, you're supposed to be giving up something that you used to idolize. So is this church admitting to be like Nazis? Like, there's so many things that don't make sense here.
Well, yeah, that's what happens whenever you leave behind moral order and
Right.
tradition and things that are older and more permanent than you, like religion, right? They said it was white men who stood at the base of the cross and crucified Jesus, right? So they're saying, I guess, they're just reducing to Jesus as black, which is good, and
They were all Middle
the
Eastern.
Pontius Pilate as white, which is bad,
There weren't
right?
even white people then. They were in the Middle East.
I think what we're seeing in this whole CRT theology, or some of these churches being more and more woke Christian churches, I think
Right.
it's so important to highlight the fact, one, Lenten season, Easter season, and everything that we celebrate around that time is to honor the death and resurrection of Christ
That's right.
for people's salvation.
Right.
And so pastors out there, now is a time more than ever. People really need you. And I mean need. If you are a pastor out there, people need you to, one, not be afraid to say the name of Jesus and what that means and what Easter is and what Lent is. And two, to stand up against this CRT garbage, because it's absolutely not biblical. And I believe if something's not biblical, it's satanic. And so to completely give up an entire race or something like that for Lent, and I can't speak for that pastor, but I think that is sad, and it's totally unbiblical, and it's totally not the message of Easter, which again has to always come back to Christ. So if you're a pastor out there, people need you, your church needs you, and now is the time to stand up and be a great leader, a biblical leader.
Right.
Well,
I mean,
preach it,
there's no
Sarah.
such thing
Goodness.
as Jew or Gentile in Christ.
Go on.
So what is black and white to Christ? I don't believe he sees skin color nor cares about it.
Go on.
So
the end of that scripture says we are all one in the body of Christ.
Right.
Go on.
Right. So therefore, why are we compartmentalizing people based on skin color, like immutable characteristics? How about we just worry about things that we can change, like our sinful nature, and give up that?
Well, exactly. And a pastor is supposed to be a shepherd leading his flock. And what's even worse than all of that, in my opinion, is that not only are we talking so much about skin color in this church, we're reducing Christ to just a brown person, right? That's all that they are. That's all that the king of the world is to them.
It's just
a black
disgusting.
person, and then I guess everyone else is white.
You know, I find it very interesting that, the Bible talks about not using the Lord's name in vain, and I don't believe that necessarily just means when you say, oh God, but when you do things in the name of Christ or in the name of God, or when you proclaim this nonsense in the name of Christianity, that's taking the Lord's name in vain. And that they're going to have to pay for that one day.
It totally is. And I will end it on a light note here and say that we spoke out about it. We caused a lot of people to do the same. They were outraged when they heard about it. We broadcast for 2 hours on the Charlie Kirk radio show in the Chicago area. And the church apparently got so many letters and emails and things saying that they were wrong for doing this. And we're talking about Christians here who are reaching out to the church and saying that this is not biblical, this is not right, this is not just.
Good.
And so they cowered away from it. The moral of the story here, though, is you're right. This is satanic. How do you defeat Satan? You have to proclaim the truth. You have to
Spread
proclaim
light.
what is good. Spread light. Be salt and light, right? And that's what Christians did, and they backed down.
Good.
Satan will always lose in the end. The church lost. I think that the city of Chicago probably won. Souls of plenty of people probably did as well. Speaking of souls that may be lost, sadly, there's a story that just broke about Hunter Biden and his laptop from hell. I know that this is, everybody's been talking about the laptop for a long time, and it feels like old news because conservatives, right, Paige, we were talking about this back in 2020.
Right.
Right.
You remember that? And so it seems like we've been listening forever. But this is a new development. It's really weird. It's really creepy. There is new data coming out of the laptop that says that Hunter Biden and his business partner in Rosemont Seneca, who is actually John Kerry's stepson, last name is Hines.
Awesome.
Right? So it's a whole cabal here.
Hang on, let me get my flow chart going.
Right. So John Kerry.
Can we get the whiteboard on set, please?
Hang on. Somewhere Disney's been
Yeah,
there.
right, exactly. And so John Kerry's kid, Joe Biden's kid, I'm sure Jeffrey Epstein's in here somewhere, right? They invested in this company that is called IMVU. I hope no one here knows what IMVU is, but IMVU is a kind of virtual metaverse kind of thing that was started in 2004, way before the metaverse was even an idea in Mark Zuckerberg's head.
2004?
Wait, let's add that to the flow chart.
Right?
Okay, yeah.
Zuckerberg.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what it is a metaverse where kids can go on there, create these avatars. There's no age restrictions or anything like that. So someone can go on, pose as a kid, and talk about whatever you want, sexually explicit, yada, yada, yada.
Right.
And then meet up with people if you wanted to. There's no barriers to it. And the president's son invested in this company, and it gets worse. He had a username with it, right? So he paid to use it. What do you think?
It's disgusting, and one, like, I'm trying to figure out, is this one laptop, or like, where is this laptop from hell coming from? But
Hell.
why is mainstream media not talking about this, and why is he still getting away with it?
Right.
Right. Like, where is he? What's he doing
Where
right
is
now?
he?
Why
Where is
hasn't
Hunter?
anybody
Why
knocked
are
down
people
his
protecting
door?
him? What does he have?
Right.
What?
Well, there's a
what
lot of money. I mean,
information
he's
does
the
he
son
have?
of the sitting president. So, I mean, there's a lot of protection that's happening there. And ironically, they've seemed to identify and
Yeah, but that wouldn't happen with Don Jr.
correct,
yeah,
right?
no.
But that's
If anything happened
that's
to
called
Don.
liberal privilege,
Yep.
right? They breathe and sleep that. So they've authenticated everything that has to do with Hunter Biden on that laptop, but all the webs that have to do with President Joe in there, they're seemingly unable to authenticate those claims and those emails. So it's just bizarre. This is perversion. Again, we know he was meeting up with children and other strippers and whatnot, so I guess he couldn't get
just
away.
makes
Had
my
to also
blood
do it while
boil.
sitting on his couch.
We don't know that he was necessarily meeting up with them, but this is
Ow.
exactly, well, I know, but
There's
it's important.
photos.
We don't want to be fake news, right?
Right.
But it's important to, I think you're underscoring the need for why this needs to be investigated, right?
Right.
Because there's potentially children who are put at risk because of the investment that Hunter made in this company. And to tell you a little bit more about this company, because I think it's really fascinating, this was a story that broke in the nationalpulse.com. Raheem Kassan wrote about it, and Natalie Winter, two really great authors over there. They're doing good work. It's a metaverse that features several strip clubs. Again, this is a child's app.
Right.
In practice, the app has been used by child predators to lure in and prey on potential victims.
And why is he spending money on that?
Why did he
Investing into
invest in that, right?
Because he's a sick individual.
Like, why are, I mean, it's bad enough that they're investing in big tech, and it's bad enough that they're investing in this, that, and the other.
Burisma and China and all these
Right.
things. And then you add to the portfolio pedophilia?
Something where you
Jeez.
can meet up with kids. So here's my question. Why you want to meet up with our kids, boo-boo? We're not about it.
Well, and who are these kids that are getting on? Is it an app that's you know, saying that, oh, it's just a game, and actually these are like real adults or real adult men who are taking advantage of it?
Right, so there's his username and there's his email confirming his account on screen. He paid
$159.
$160 for it, right?
Jeez, this
Okay,
is
so
just
parents,
Oh, that's
if you're
for
watching,
Chatterbait. That's a different thing.
And what is this? What was the app?
Chatterbait.
That's for Chatterbait.
That's what
This
it's
is a different
called?
thing. Well, no, that's a different thing.
So the
But I
virtual
think
reality game is IMVU.
IMVU. Anyway, if you're a parent, keep your kids away from it. I don't even know if it
Why
exists
are
anymore.
kids
You have to be
on
careful with-
VR stuff? This is such a threat to morality and society as a whole. I hate the whole VR thing. I always have, because humans cannot take anything and keep it pure. By nature, we will spoil it. So you create an entire alternative reality because you suck so bad at this one, and then you have no rules in this new one where you're able to do this stuff. I mean, there's reports of 26-year-old Illinois resident arrested for sending explicit images to a young girl between the ages of 5 and 16.
Okay, all I can say is yes, you are approved. You definitely should procreate and bring children into this
Oh,
world
I
because
will
I'm
be
about these
procreating
values.
hard as soon as I get married. Hard.
As soon as she gets married, that's the key.
Yes.
Of course.
So anyway,
come marry me. This is just an ad for me.
But
Mary
my
Lily.
dating ad.
Anyways.
Now that
Don't
we're
be a child predator, though.
exactly,
True.
Lily is of age,
What is with
and
this-
she'll probably be consenting. But
Thank you.
right, I would assume so. And because you raised in a good family, I know your parents; they're great people.
I was just saying she would make a great mom.
You would make a phenomenal mom.
I appreciate it. And then
Your
we
stepmom.
need to create like a coalition of moms
Yeah.
who
But
go
not
out,
meta moms. Real life moms.
Not meta moms. Real moms who go out and beat the asses of these pedophiles. I mean, I don't understand how these people are eating, sleeping, breathing, walking around in public freely.
Because they're
We've seen-
protected.
right. Well, I mean, there's videos coming out left and right now of like guys who will go after these people in public. They'll fake meet up with them, and they meet up at a Walmart, and then so they start yelling to everyone like, "This guy was here to meet up with a 16-year-old." Da 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 da. Beat him up. Beat him up. Why are they still walking? I mean, is that bad to call for violence against pedophiles? I mean, now that we have a Supreme Court justice who's a pedo simp, I mean, the law and order is gone. There's like the civilians are going to have to take this stuff into their own hands. Otherwise, your children are going to pay for it.
And we're going to talk more about that later because you're exactly right. And this ties into the grooming argument that we've been talking about a lot. This ties into Disney. And everyone
so
should really
bad.
take a pause. And like you said, there's a flow chart that you have in your head right now, right? Everyone should have a flow chart in their head.
Okay, here we go.
And start connecting these pieces, right? You've got Ketanji Brown Jackson, who has lenient sentences for pedophiles.
Disgusting.
You've got the president's son, who is engaged in, quasi-pedophilic behavior upon further investigation, maybe, right? We don't know. We've got the senators, the left-wing senators, who are stopping bills from conservative senators who are trying to make harsher sentences.
Right.
And then we've got Disney.
Right.
And then we've got TikTok. And then we've got the media.
Education system,
USA
public
Today
school.
is saying that maybe it's okay to be a pedophile. And then we've got professors who've covered on the show before
Drag
who are
queen
saying it's
story
okay
hour.
to do, sexual acts with 1-year-olds, right? So, yeah, connect all of those dots. And then ask yourself why someone with the ability to make a decision on the highest court in the land was just breezed through a Supreme Court appointment
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
with her sentencing background.
I've tried to talk to my friends about this because we keep seeing the goalpost moved. I've been saying for years the goal is to legalize pedophilia. That is the goal. And so you've seen it legislatively start to happen in California where they decrease the age of consent or the age of being able to get puberty blockers or now if you're just within 10 years, it's not necessarily like rape. Okay, like everything is trending in that direction and people are like, no, it's never going to happen.
They
Never
do
gonna
that a
happen.
lot with everything. I mean, I see it with firearms, and
That's exactly right.
I have a very
It's the truth.
in-depth flow chart when it comes to firearms and the moving of the goalpost. And it's okay. Well, yeah, I think this should be moved. Okay, this should be moved until they reach their goal. They're doing that with everything in their agenda.
And unfortunately, conservatives are passive and they don't hold the line, and you lose all the ground. And this is where we
Because
are.
we're always told to be the bigger person because we're true to our values. That's all we need to know, and we don't need anyone else for validation. And we're now having to push that boundary and act like them in order to fight back for our values.
Conservatives have other things to do with their life. Like politics isn't everything. They want to raise a family. They want to go to church. For the most part, the idea is stay out of my life. You stay out of your, and we're good. Problem is the left is totalitarian. They have nothing else besides earthly power. That is their heaven. So they have to control all of it.
So, all of those values that you have as a young woman, and all the values that you're raising your kids with as a mother, and Paige, you're obviously a phenomenal woman. Those are the values that are taught at Turning Point USA's Young Women's Leadership Summit, which you all can attend.
That was a great segue.
Which you all can attend in June.
June
First
2nd
weekend of
through
June.
the 4th.
Thank you so much. I'm not a
Code
contributor.
Paige gets you 25% off.
Go on
There
now.
you go. Code Charlie. I think we have a promo for that. Do we want to play that? Young Women's Leadership Summit.
And I hope you're filled with courage and conviction, clarity, and a little bit of wisdom. Know that we at Turning Point USA, we have your back.
What an absolute party. I'm from Texas.
I'm so excited.
And you're from Texas, aren't you? Did I make, no, you're from Arizona. That was dumb. I'm sorry. I'm so lost right now.
How long have you known me? I'm not at
really are
headquarters all
friends,
the
right?
time.
Okay, on a happy note, though, I'll be in Dallas for a wedding, so we definitely have to get together.
I will be there. I'm actually going to try to do some private lessons while I'm there.
That's incredible.
So,
Oh, that's
yes. So I'm trying to travel
cool.
instruct, and so I'll be there for a day before and a day after, and I'm working with Range to possibly have some young ladies come and do private lessons with me.
Ooh, that's
That's
awesome.
incredible. There's nothing more important than, I think, for women to be proficient in firearm safety and
Yes,
just
the great
use of it and
equalizer.
all of these things. It's the great equalizer. That's exactly right. Because at the end of the day, men, typically speaking, bigger, stronger, faster, more muscular. That's why we're opposed to them being in women's sports, right?
Oh, don't even get me
yeah,
started.
well, I
Yes.
won't. That's for a different show. Anyway, that's great. Come to Young Women's. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'll be there. I don't know. But Lily will be there, and Paige, Sarah's going to be there for a wedding, but maybe you'll see her around. I don't know.
You should come. It's
Anyway,
really fun.
It's
a
awesome.
hoot.
It's really great.
So, what's not great? Grooming children. So Disney has been Disney's been in the news a lot recently. I think we all know this, right? Everyone's been talking
Drew
about
Hernandez
it.
just talked about it on
Drew
his
Hernandez
show.
just passionately talked about it. I love how fired up Drew gets.
That was awesome
Yeah.
to watch. Great job, Drew.
Oh, it
As a
echoes.
mom.
It
It's me
echoes
going.
through headquarters. You can hear him from all over.
It's
the
incredible.
energy we need, honestly.
No,
like,
it
I
is.
don't understand how people
You have to be
aren't.
fired up about
Yep.
these things, because if you're not willing to protect kids and the
Yes.
most innocent among you, then you're not a man and you're not, frankly, an American.
Yeah.
And we got to figure out something to do with you. But I'll tell you, a behind-the-scenes tidbit, and then we'll move on, about Drew. Whenever he's doing the show, he's fiery and he's passionate and he's fired up about everything. It's so intense. Well, it's in the Turning Point studio. It's not in a tent, but it is intense. And his feet are dangling off this little high chair, and it's the funniest thing. I'm sorry,
call him
Drew.
out
I don't
like
want to call you out like that.
Oh my gosh.
But it's the
I didn't
funniest
notice
thing
that.
on earth.
Well, it's a pretty tall
It's a very tall chair.
situation.
I can tell you that much.
The more his heart rate goes, he just starts.
No,
like,
but that's exactly right. You can tell when he's getting fired up about something because his feet start going like he's an organist or a drummer or something.
Oh, yeah.
It's incredible. Drew is one of the best that we have. Anyway, Disney's been in the news a lot recently.
Yeah.
This all started with Ron DeSantis and Florida and the quote-unquote Don't Say Gay bill, which is
Right.
really just a parental rights bill, right? And the left had this insane reaction to
Right.
it.
Yep.
I've always said that it should be a major red flag. If you're willing to die on a hill of not being able to talk to kids about butt sex and just sex in general, then you shouldn't be within 1,000 feet of a kid,
At
right?
all.
And
Period.
there's
In your private life.
questionable.
And this
It's so
wasn't
questionable.
questioned before. This was a common. This is never a conversation we've had to have until recently, as the goalpost keeps moving, and as all these public schools were having drag queen story hour and taking all these kids, you know, to the gay bars as a field trip. And once this stuff started coming out, and we had Zoom class over the past 2 years,
been there.
and
It was the worst.
Teachers started speaking at school boards, or parents did, and they started realizing what was going on. The light started to shed, and now it's a full-blown, they're just open about it. Disney's like, yeah, by the way, our agenda is to pervert your children. That's how our movies are going to go. We need to absolutely divest every dollar.
Lily's not lying about that. We have a clip of that. One of the
Every
Disney
dollar.
employees, executive producer, saying that they want queer everywhere. Let's play that.
Sense of I don't have to be afraid to like, let's have these two characters kiss. Let's in the background. This like I was just wherever I could, just basically adding queerness to like if you see anything queer in the show, I'm proud family. But like I just was like, no one would stop me, and no one was trying to stop.
Okay, so to talk really quick, micro and macro. On the micro level, inside my home, really sad. My kids, there's ABC Mouse, right? I don't even want to give them the ad space, but basically it's a learning app, yada, yada, yada. It's quite a bit of money every year, and so I canceled both of their subscriptions. Disney Plus, gone. We've celebrated one of my son's birthdays at Disneyland. We live 20 minutes from the park.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
not happening anymore. So on a micro level, dollars count. I'm a business owner.
Oh,
you have to hit
yes.
them where it hurts. Dollars count. And while it might seem really tough, I mean, and it took me a while, I'll admit, to cancel those subscriptions. Because as a mom, sometimes you're like, that's fun, that's movie night, maybe I can find something good.
Yeah.
They recently came out with a movie that was, I personally think, demonic.
Oh, it was
and
abhorrent.
It was the final. I'm sorry.
Terrible. It was abhorrent. Go ahead.
Abhorrent. And it started, though, like you're talking about, moving that goalpost a little bit. At first, I'm like, oh, these aren't love stories anymore between a guy and a girl. And then it's, wait a minute, why does every young girl depart from her family and make her own way, go against the parents? And then it became, kids want to fit in more, but they're a little bit different. And then it became, oh my goodness, we're turning this off. What in the label? And so on a micro level, my home, we're making that move and we're making that shift to say this is absolutely not okay. My children deserve to be protected. But here's what, and this is my charge to parents on the macro level. You cannot be surprised that they are coming for the children.
No.
If you're a student of history, if you've ever read the Torah or the Bible or anything, Satan comes, scripture says that he's crafty. It actually says he's crafty. That's scary. That should scare you. First he comes for the woman, then he comes for the man or the husband, and then for the children. The first murder that we see is between Cain and Abel. They're siblings. So came for the woman in what I think is the form of modern day feminism.
Totally.
Say what you want. And then for the man, we see this attack on toxic masculinity. We see this outcry, we need more men in America, which is true, right? But then now this attack on our children, and don't be surprised. And so here's what, there's plenty of evidence to suggest that when children are exposed, when they're too young, they don't have the cerebral capacity and development
at all
to withstand all of these images, the over-sexualization, the overexposure to the CRT, these mature concepts. That's why we have ratings to begin with, Y7, PG-13, R, right? So when they aren't ready for that, the effects go beyond childhood, puberty, these crazy puberty blockers, teen years, young adulthood. It affects their adult romantic relationships and their adult personal relationships. And then it destroys what? The family. And what is critical to a healthy, functioning society and nation is the family. So don't be surprised that we see the family degradation and then the destruction of America. What we have to do as parents is stand up for our kids. You have to protect your children and what they see and what goes into their beautiful minds and their beautiful hearts and their beautiful time together as a family. And we have to find something other than Disney right now, which Disney, we would love for you to come back around. Please, I'm saying as a busy mom.
Which is hard too, because I mean, I grew up on Disney. My family members are actually were huge Disney characters for years. Like, we love Disney. I loved Disney. And that's really hard for me because, you're growing up and I saved all of my Disney movies. I'm like, I can't wait. Like, when I have kids, I can share these Disney movies with them and I can watch them. And, you know, it's a thing. Like, we grow up. It's part of my life and my childhood that I want to share with my kids. But now it's one of these things where I'm like, this is a tradition that I can't do. I can't take my kids to Disney. I don't want to support a company like that. But even in, like you were saying, you really have to vote with your dollars. But that's with anything, right? That's the power that we have, is that you can choose to turn this off. And it may be difficult, but that's the action that you can take.
And Paige, what we hear so often is that the left ridicules conservatives when they choose to boycott or boycott, we say sometimes, right? They say, oh, the people who mock cancel culture are deciding to cancel. No, it's not. That's not what that is. You're stupid, right?
No.
That's not cancel culture.
It's voting with your dollar.
It's voting with your dollar.
It's just assuming your personal responsibility over your facets and your money. We're not going out there saying that we need to disband the entire thing and dissolve all of their assets.
No.
We're just saying, as for me and my family, we're going to serve the Lord and not pay for him. And it's so funny that you had such a history with Disney because my family did not. I was one of those kids who didn't watch Nickelodeon. I hardly watched Disney. At 3 years old, I was using a butcher knife because I was watching Food Network every day in my kitchen. Those are the types of things.
You still have all your fingers?
And you turned out great.
I do, and I love cooking. But like that was one of the things that my parents were like, we're not going to do all of that. So for me, I've kind of always been skeptical of Disney, and I've been waiting for them to cross this line. So it's been interesting to watch the perversion. When you look for it, it's everywhere.
Oh, it's everywhere.
And I noticed it when I went to the Disneyland as like a little conspiracy theorist. I'm like, pentagrams here, subliminal messages here.
Your tinfoil hats are behind the couch if you want to go.
Yeah. No, I mean, but it's not a conspiracy.
I almost looked.
There it is. Anyway, so it's so interesting. But you know what we need is we need a conservative space to come in. And I know there's conservative movie companies and whatnot, but we need family-oriented kids entertainment.
I know so many great ones.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Or like send your kids outside to play or read them a book or something.
Be in the
like
dirt,
that.
ride a bike with them, spend quality time.
The less time that we spend putting our kids in front of a screen, the more connected we're going to be with them. I don't have kids. I hope to someday. And I hope to raise them in a country.
them.
I hope to raise them in a country where I don't have to worry about them going to school and being put in something called a transition closet, which is what they have in Oakland, California right now, right?
No.
So here's an example. Because we want to get into the schools here, because I think that's the scariest thing, right? Because you have control over what your kids watch to a certain extent, but you don't have a lot of control whenever you send them off to the teachers every day, right? For 8 hours a day,
right?
Those kids are kind of in the hands of the teachers. And
other than in the Zoom class, you get to see them in Zoom school, and then you pull them out. Yeah.
But in Oakland, there's a story about how if a child is trans, right, which I think is baloney. A child's never actually trans. They're groomed.
Okay,
frankly,
but
right?
continue.
Anyway. They leave school or they leave their home, let's say they're a man or a boy. They're wearing something like this, boys' clothes, boots, pants, shirt, whatever. Then they can get to school and the teacher gives them a closet to go into, literally, and they can go change into whatever clothes that they feel most comfortable with, aligning to their gender, right? The parents don't know anything about it. They're never told,
try that to me.
right? And the kid just gets to do it. Now listen, if I'm a fourth grader and I'm stupid and I'm young and I'm impressionable and everyone's doing it, then I'd be like, well, hell yeah, I'm going to go in there, I'm going to put on a tutu.
Yeah, it's
I was a class clown
you
growing up. It's like, yeah, this is funny,
And
right?
it gives them a community, because this is the cool thing now. Like the
and
cool
I want to
thing,
fit in that age group. Like
They're so impressionable.
You go. I mean, you shop at those stores because all the girls do.
Yes,
or you
they've
shop
replaced Vera Bradley bags
Exactly.
with transitioning, and now that's the cool kid thing to do. It gives you an ideology. It gives you something to be like, hey, look at me, I'm doing this thing and I'm so oppressed, and it gives you a community. Oh my gosh, this is so evil.
And if you don't, you're going to get bullied, and bullying is a huge issue, right?
Well, bullying, I think, is actually something we need to bring back.
I was going to say, we got to bring back bullying.
Back in my day,
healthy bullying.
Healthy bullying, of course.
Let them figure it out. I'm all about, like, all right, see what needs to happen, and I'll intervene if the line gets crossed, but yeah,
I think more kids need to learn Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's like, if you are a kid who is raised right by a good, God-fearing family, and you see something wrong and you see something evil going on, I'm not calling for physical violence, obviously, but stand up and say something about it. Be like, hey, actually, bro, this is not cool. Take that dress off and stop being a freak. Right?
Yeah.
There's something weird going on here.
Doesn't that make you sad for the kids, though? That makes me sad. I miss the days. I remember my mom was so hype. Sorry, Mom, if you're watching. But when I went to the homecoming as a freshman, I had to wear, like, pantyhose. And she was like, you better come back with those on, And I miss the days of, like, check in to make sure I was wearing what I left the house in, that there was nothing underneath, anything like that.
Totally.
That's some old school parenting right there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Loved it. I
miss
had
that.
curfews. I didn't have social media until I was a junior in high school.
I definitely broke a curfew.
Like all that kind of stuff. I'm just grateful that my mom didn't remedy my tomboy phase with puberty blockers.
Go on.
Because
Thank you,
like,
Mom.
I'm not like a typical girly girl out here. Yeah. And my mom could have easily been like,
you have to pray for those
maybe
kids.
you're a man. Let's just pump you with something that's going to alter the insides of your body permanently. Forever.
And what about the poor teachers, though? Like the ones who maybe don't feel the same way as the mob mentality and...
Well, here's an interesting story. There's a nurse in Connecticut who blew the whistle on the gender crap that's happening in her school, right? And she said that out of 32 kids, I think, 32 kids from 11 to 13, they came into her office and they were given puberty blockers at the direction of the administration. And the parents knew nothing about it, right? And she was instructed not to tell the parents, and they weren't allowed to know, right? I think 2 out of the 32, the parents knew about it, right? And they placed her on administrative leave. They fired her. They booted her ass, right? And that's what happens. If you're a teacher who is standing up for the moral and the true and the right and the just and the permanent, then you are ostracized and you are fired technically from your job.
Well, she'll be created into a radical, and she'll get hired quickly at a moral school.
Hopefully at a private school or something like that.
Right, and she'll be able to help students.
Someone who's not going to get hired at a private Christian school, just so everyone is clear that we're not just making this up. This isn't just conservative propaganda, right? This is real. It's happening to your children. Let's go to cut 9 of a gender fluid teacher, a gay guy, who put out a video on TikTok, which we're going to get into later, talking about the Don't Say Gay bill in Florida.
Y'all thought me teaching the children about me being poly was crazy. But not only that, but they also know that I'm gender fluid. At one point last year, I had explained to them that I was not Miss Lois or Mr. Lois. It's just Lois because I'm not a boy or a girl. And this was all well and good until October, when I also explained to him that I'm pagan, so I am also a witch. And at one point I had gotten a haircut and I gotten the sides of my mohawk shaved down. And I come into work and one of the children goes, "Lois, are you a boy? You have short hair." And his sister goes, "No, Lois is a girl." And a third child, who's my favorite, suddenly yells, "No guys, we've been over this. Lois isn't a boy or a girl. Lois is a witch. Duh."
Okay, so back in my day, I remember there was this thing called parent-teacher conferences. I don't know if
We
they still do
have
those.
them
You still do
twice a
those?
year, yeah.
Really?
You
Thank
do?
God.
If I were a parent and I walked into the classroom or wherever you do those things at, and I saw that thing that was going to be the teacher of my children and the keeper of them for 8 hours a day, especially during like K through 3, I would have been like, no.
Yeah.
Like, no,
to be
absolutely
completely
not.
honest, this is why my kids are not in public school anymore. It was
Right.
really sad. One of the best things to come out of lockdown was getting to experience what was happening in Zoom school.
Talk about that, because that's such a good
heartbreaking.
point.
Yeah, so I don't share publicly because of social media presence and stuff the name of my children's private school and for the protection of their
course.
privacy and the teachers who are absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Of course.
But when we were in public school, it was sad to watch at the time kindergartners, first graders, they were encouraging the boys to wear makeup, like in Zoom class.
No.
They were
What?
talking about how, it breaks my heart to even say, they were talking about how sometimes dads marry dads and things like this. You have to remember, my son was only 5 years old, 5, 6 years old.
And that's very
This is so
confusing
interesting.
to them.
And this is like an influx. Like these kinds of teachers, they're being bred. This is a movement in a
universities.
machine. These universities are taking these people, pouring their hearts and twisted souls into them, and deploying them into our education system.
It's sad.
I have
yeah, it's a
never seen teachers
mobilization
like
of
that
an
until recently.
Because
there used to be a
also,
standard
there-
of
I was gonna say,
professionalism.
there
okay?
used to be, like,
your
you
hair
can't
couldn't
color
look
your
like
hair.
that.
You
can
have
have
to be professional.
piercings. Your clothing had to be like you had to look like somebody who commands attention.
Golf
That
dress code.
commands terror.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
and that
yeah.
is not acceptable. There shouldn't be teachers. I mean, I have compassion for
metal
these
shit out
people.
of your face,
I
right?
really do. But these poor children. That's how you know
These
that it's a
poor children,
totalitarian,
yeah.
evil, demonic spirit that is taking over these people and causing them to act this way.
Parents
because
need
these
to
are
stand up
children.
and take education back for sure. And there are so many amazing resources. And I know it's hard. I'm a single mom. That doesn't mean if I can do it, everyone can do it. It's very difficult. I totally understand that. But parents, be deeply integrated in your children's education.
Yep.
Deeply integrated. You need to be reading every assignment. You need to be reading the books that they do book reports with, no matter how exhaustive it is or how late you have to stay up.
Yep.
You need to know what's coming through. Sometimes even in the emails, be deeply, deeply involved in your child's education, not just to protect them, but because it'll bless your children. That's
Yes.
an amazing bonding
And it
experience.
blesses your country, too.
It blesses your country. And again, it goes back to protecting the family unit. And I think all of this to what you just said about the kind of standard of decorum and what you just said about moving that goalpost. The left is constantly moving the goalpost. And if you're constantly moving the goalpost, I know Johnny loves sports, you can't win that game. You cannot win. You have to be chasing after the one goalpost that never changes. And where do you put your hope and where do you put your faith in it? For us, in our home, it's Christ. But you have to know for your home what's going to protect your family the most. And then that is where you make all your decisions from,
Yes.
not what we just saw on the screen.
It's actually easier. Like that's what I tell people. Like when I'm trying to explain Christ and Christianity to people, I'm like, you're confused, right? This is
Yeah.
hard. Sometimes you don't know what to do. There's easy black and white answers for this stuff. It's very simple. Simplify your life, get back to the one goalpost as you mentioned, and make your decisions from there, and you will have peace from that. You don't have
Well,
to deal with this chaos.
I'll tell you one thing, and then I'm being told we have to move on. But the purpose of education is actually to indoctrinate, right? Now, indoctrinate's a dirty word these days. But if you look back to what Socrates and Plato and Aristotle said about it, the purpose of education is to indoctrinate and instill good values and
Right.
moral values.
Yep.
Right?
There's the catch.
Because at the end of the day, the academy is something that is built by, of, and for parents and for the betterment of the society. Okay? So, when we talk about parents rising up, it can't just be to rise up and say, stop doing this, stop talking about gays, stop talking about the weird things and the butts, whatever, and the dresses.
It's true.
But start talking about that which is good and right and just. Start talking about morality. Start talking about instilling values of chivalry and femininity and health and all kinds of things that make a healthy, happy, productive society.
Yeah. And
That's what education
patriotism.
should be. And patriotism,
Yeah.
the most important thing,
Be
frankly.
excited about that.
Yeah, you should be. someone who's not excited about patriotism is our president. Oddly enough, I don't think he's excited about much.
He doesn't have the brain power to be excited about
yeah,
much.
he's senile.
Poor guy.
He gets
I'm
excited
sorry,
about
did
ice
I
cream.
say that?
Anyway, no, it's okay. It's okay. It's terrifying. But
Yeah.
anyway, America, as we know, I think if we're all living through it, is not in a great place right now. It's sad to say, as someone who loves my country, and it feels fairly depressing because it doesn't seem like it's really getting better all the time. But I do think that by and large, the people are waking up. Because if you look at the poll numbers, the president is doing really poorly. He's at like 40%. His vice president is doing even worse. She's a disaster. Crime is at an all-time high. Inflation's at an all-time high. Gas prices, obviously, all-time high. I spent $85 to fill up my car the other day.
Right. Mine was over 100.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly.
Gnarly.
You're in California, right?
California.
What's per gallon in California?
Anywhere from $5.99 to $6.69.
It's insane.
Yeah. In Southern Orange County, yeah. I will say though, I will lovingly kind of disagree. I still have a lot of hope. I still have a lot of hope.
Let me be clear. I have a lot of hope, and it's only because we're seeing so many incredible things, or so many incredible instances of citizens rising up.
Yeah.
The rise of the citizens is happening. The fall of the regime is happening, and they're concurrent events, right? The regime is going down. The citizens are going up. It's like an x-axis, right?
It's the crunch and expand.
It's
of our society.
It's the laws of nature and nature's God.
Right.
There's always going to be an equal and opposite reaction to something if it is so visceral as this attack has been on America, right?
Yeah.
And we're witnessing that right now. And it's not just the people who are turning on Biden. The mainstream legacy media is also turning on Biden. Rush Limbaugh, the great Rush Limbaugh, used to call him the drive-by media, right? Because they would just pew, and they would drive by, and they would look at something, they would touch it maybe, and then they would get away from it because they didn't want to cover it because it was harmful to, maybe Obama or just the military-industrial complex during Bush or whatever. Now the media is starting to wake up, and it poses this really interesting question that I want to get into later. Well, no, they are. I mean, look at the Washington Post.
I disagree, but
the
that's
Washington Post is coming out, and they're saying that the Hunter Biden laptop is real. They're a year late, obviously. They're reporting on Biden's failures. They're coming out against him. They're playing these clips that they would never would have played a year ago, right? They're coming out against him. We have proof of it, I think. Video 11. Can we play that?
It's always Putin's price hike. They're trying to blame, of course, the Russian president and the invasion of Ukraine for the jump in prices. But of course, as polling suggests, this president is going to take a lot of the blame here.
Biden has called it a Putin price hike, but most Americans aren't buying it.
With the midterms now just a few months away and inflation at a record high, the president is now putting the blame squarely on Vladimir Putin, calling this the Putin price hike. But as the president's critics have been quick to note, gas prices were already rising before Russia started this war.
The White House is trying to do both. Blame Putin, blame the oil and gas companies, but Americans just don't agree.
Right. So the media is calling him on his bullshit. They're giving credit, they're calling him on his crap. They're giving credit, sorry.
Okay, hot take here.
Go ahead.
I don't think that's what's happening at all. I think that this is all a part of the devised plan they ushered him in here, they worshipped him. Now that he's reaching an expiration point, they're running with that, and now they have to be agreeing that he is the problem so that they can offer their solution, who's going to be much stronger and much more openly passionate about these situations and usher it in. I think it works beautifully. I think they did it explicitly the way they wanted it to.
Can I tell you, you're exactly right.
Okay,
And
good.
it's almost like you have my cards and you're reading ahead. I don't know. Did you learn that in school?
No, I just listened to a lot of Charlie, but
good for you.
But it also
I
just
do
makes
too.
sense. Well, yeah, no, but it just fundamentally makes sense when you understand the way the left works. I mean, I really think that they are just so smart and very calculated, totalitarian, and ran by the devil. Therefore, it's going to get to this point where, that's why I don't think any of this is by accident. I don't think they're waking up and realizing. I think they're like, okay, we've reached the point on the calendar where now we have to discredit him so that we can move him out, so we can move the new guy in.
He's getting old and stinky.
Oh, this is not new. They're not awakening to any of it. None of it.
Walter is alive today.
That's exactly right. Let me be clear. I agree with you, and we're going to get into exactly why I agree with you, maybe why this couch disagrees with you. I don't know. I'm just creating drama. But we have to go to an ad real quick. This is Alex Clark, I think, on the Spillover. Is that right? Tell us more, Alex.
How would you describe the Amish? I mean, is it to you a religion? Is it a cult?
I think it's a little bit of both. There's no electronics. There's no indoor plumbing. There's no running water. The women are supposed to wear their hair under a covering.
Did you even know how to flush a toilet?
Okay, let's talk about dating. It's very weird. There's no hugging and kissing. There's no I love yous. I was never told I love you by my parents.
How does news from the outside world get in, or does it not get in?
We weren't even allowed to have candles.
What do you mean? There had to be a moment where you started thinking, maybe I don't want to be Amish for the rest of my life.
I climbed out the window upstairs to then jump off the roof to leave. I love talking about it, and I'm proud of where I come from. It was an experience, and you can learn from it, and it's made me who I am, and I'm not ashamed about it anymore.
How about that? I'll tell you
That's
one
gonna be
thing.
such good stuff.
That's going to be so good.
I love all of her guests on
The
there.
Amish
Yeah.
are saving on gas, and we're not. So I'll tell you that much. No, Alex Clark's Spillover podcast is really, really
Excellent.
exceptional.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been impressed by every single guest that she's had on, and I've enjoyed every single episode. It's been phenomenal.
Absolutely.
And you know, look, and I'm speaking as the guy on the couch here. If politics maybe isn't your speed, you're not up on the pop culture stuff, check out the Spillover, okay? Because I'm telling you, it's totally different.
Yeah.
Alex was a seasoned radio host for a long time in Indianapolis, and it shows in the podcast, okay?
And if
so
you're
check
a mom,
it out.
her mommy blogger episode
So
is
good.
so good.
I'm not even a
loved
mom, I
it.
enjoyed it.
Got me hooked. Oh.
Anyway, no, go ahead, sorry.
I will say, I just want to give a big shout out to the American people, because
Yes.
I don't think that anyone on the left or the right or anywhere is buying the whole Putin price hike
No, of course not.
headline. I think that people realize gas has been going up for a long time, the cost of food has been going up for a long time. So just shout out to everyone for really not believing that malarkey.
You're the most supportive person.
And isn't she cute?
my mom.
It's like I feel hope from her.
I know. I love
I
that.
have very little hope. No, I take that back. I have peace over what's happening because I understand that in my head, being a Christian, the battle's already won, and it has to reach a breaking point. So it's like I have peace over the way that things are trending because I know it has to go because otherwise there's no
Great
point to any of it.
distinction.
But I appreciate your enthusiasm and your heart for it all because it makes me feel like
there absolutely is hope. It's not the end, so we're not giving up.
Amen. The optimism is a welcome change
Yes.
from my general worldview, which is deeply dark and pessimistic. It's a terrible place to be in my head, but that's okay. I think you're right, Lily. I think that Biden has an expiration date, and I think that they're realizing that he's not being able to usher in the new world order like they really wanted.
No, I think they knew that. I think they listen.
Well,
he
I
was,
mean, maybe
he was such a
Well,
calculated,
then why would they
perfect choice.
Why would they take the election away from the American
It's such
people?
a house of cards.
No.
then-
Because well, listen, Joe had to win because he is, Grandpa Joe. He's nice and warm and friendly, and like they painted him as like
kinda creepy.
Right, but this is what they were telling us, right? I mean, they literally had a campaign called "Settle for Joe," right?
Yeah,
Like just
settle
settle
for the
for it.
sniffer.
Like right, sweet guy,
That's good.
old guy, it won't harm a fly. So that was a good enough foot in the door. It captured enough people, regardless of what could or could not have happened with the election. He's here, so. He captured the heart of, the middle. He really did, unfortunately, and was a solution to the President
and
Trump
also
problem.
it was such an issue because people look at the person and the candidate and they say, I hate Trump, so therefore I'm going to go to
so it was
him
perfect.
against
So
Trump.
like, they knew he was not mentally stable. They knew he wouldn't be able to be this hard hitter. That's why, in my personal opinion, I think Obama's been running this freaking thing from the very beginning. I mean, he's even told us that.
Yeah.
So now this is perfect. This is exactly what they wanted. Someone soft and malleable that they can control. And now that he's literally like
they've
physically
seen him,
incapable.
They've seen him as a vice president before, so now it's like, okay.
Right. So now, they're going to usher him out. They're going to slowly, I don't know, maybe he'll just, I don't know, who can ever be sure. And then they're going to
Well, now
usher
that
in
he's
their
been shaking
new
so many hands and getting
chosen
kisses.
person, which we can, I'm sure, talk so much about who we think is going to be the next.
Yeah, who do you think it is, Paige? Who's
So-
next in line?
So here's what I think.
Spicy take. Let's go.
And what's so interesting is I've been with Turning Point for less than a year, and I started out like not very political. I'm really learning every time that I'm on the couch. You guys are so knowledgeable with this, and now I'm starting to like pick things up, and I'm like, oh, this is wild. Okay, so anyways,
Trends, yeah, anyway.
So my thought is he's got an expiration date. They know this. I think it's very calculated. They don't react. Conservatives react.
Right.
Like we have to see their cards and we have to react to that. They're always 2 steps ahead.
We have to get on the offensive.
Completely. So what I think is that, right, Nancy Pelosi tested positive for COVID.
Right.
Right. He's kissing, he's holding hands. They're
Yeah.
making that very known now. Obama is back in the picture.
Did you see that creepy video?
Completely.
The one where he literally calls Joe his vice president, and President Joe calls himself his vice president. I mean,
So-
like,
I think there's going to, right, there's a new COVID outbreak. I think Biden somehow is going to tank, right? Or he's going to be terminally ill. There's going to be something that makes him incapable
for sure.
of being
the 25th
president.
Amendment.
Yes.
We have it for a
It's
reason,
going
and
to come
they've
in.
been sprinkling it here and there.
It's
and
going
we
to
know that
come
they
in.
don't do that by accident. And so
Now, I don't know if it's going to be former President Obama or if it's going to be Kamala. And okay, this will figure this out as well. If you are, like, if Kamala becomes president, can she name a vice president?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's what I think is going to happen.
So how that works is the vice president that Kamala appoints has to then be Senate approved, but a bit of a pickle because we are in a 50-50 Senate with Kamala Harris being the tie, vice president Kamala Harris being the tie vote.
picks herself.
And it's totally unprecedented for that to ever happen. So we don't know if she could break the tie there.
But isn't all of it?
So what you're saying is now is the time to learn to grow your own food, shoot your own firearm, train your own kids, homeschool, picking up what you're putting down.
Yep. Right.
Amen.
No, it's vital. We're going to have to. And you know, it's funny. I've been getting like super into like the local farmers market and all this stuff, and I used to resent it because I'm like, it's just a lefty like field of dreams. Now I get it, and it's actually imperative in order to maintain our own economy here, because as we've seen, the supply chain is non-existent,
support your local
right?
farmers.
So where are you going to get your eggs from when they're not being delivered at your doorstep, right? You're going to have to grow them and do them yourself. It's why we need to like little community garden, you know, all the nine.
Speaking of community gardens,
He's just killing it with these
guess where I'm gonna
transitions.
go.
This is amazing.
Biden made a chopped salad. of
You are
words.
killing it. Give me, God, these transitions
Don't
are
knuckle
fire.
that. That was terrible.
No, it was
now,
good.
just to show you who's in charge of the nuclear codes, let's play video 17.
Is it a chopped salad?
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was in the the foothills of the Himalayas with Xi Jinping, traveling with him. I guess we traveled 17,000 miles when I was vice president. I don't know that for a fact.
America can be described in a single word.
True and international to pressure.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
sounded like Putin's in the Himalayas with Xi Jinping.
Yeah, so I hope that
So
inspires.
where does Xi Jinping come from? Why
I
are we
hope
talking
he
about
comes from China. I hope that inspires confidence in all of you.
Yeah.
Speaking of China, there is a story that we're just going to touch on briefly because I think it's really interesting. But yeah, so we got 2 minutes to touch on this. That's okay. It's fascinating though. TikTok is a Chinese Communist Party controlled app
Won't do
that
it.
is making Americans dumber by the second. And the Biden regime is catching on to that, and they're using it as a way to push their own narrative that, as we saw in that clip earlier from the legacy media, the people aren't really buying, right?
Right.
And so now that we see that people aren't buying it, the TikTokers are coming out, and this was in a piece by Chrissy Clark, who's a TPUSA alum, a great person, written in the Daily Caller, and it's being revealed that they're all just pawns of the left-wing party, right?
Right.
And so here's one thing that I'll say, and then we have to go on to something much lighter and much more beautiful, I think, is what I'm told, and that's our office here. Is that if I'm a parent, I'm never letting my kid on TikTok.
Ever.
Ever.
I'm glad I'm not on TikTok.
If I'm a conservative, I'm never going to your TikTok.
No.
If I'm, I had this whole crusade a while back where we tried to get TikTok banned from the company, and we did. And then we tried to get it banned from the United States, and we came close.
Yeah.
But Charlie was leading the way on that, and I was kind of right there egging them on to do it because I really think it's evil and it's degrading our country at the fullest
Especially
extent.
since in China they reward with an algorithm different types of content.
You were talking about this earlier,
Absolutely.
and I didn't know this is really
Here
interesting.
it's the dance videos, which I love dancing, don't get me wrong, but in China they reward great mathematics, speeches, great matters of intellect, and
there's
they
time
reward those
limits.
videos.
That's what's really funny. It's
you can
like a
only
complete
watch for
hypocrisy.
45 minutes a day.
Right.
Whereas here, you
Which
know,
I don't agree that it should have a 45, like that's up to the parents, that's up to the person, right? Because we are free to watch or do as we should. But
Totally
the fact
agree.
that they are controlling, okay, we're going to let the Americans get dumber while we actually use the platform for something
It's
else.
an act of war.
It's an act of
It's
war.
an
It's
act
all
of
part of
war.
their plan.
Yeah.
And the fact that we even tolerate that shows that we're not really much of a serious nation anymore,
how
sadly.
fun would the three of us be at the range? I just want to put that out there.
Well, let's go.
I think we should look into that.
Lily's going on Sunday.
I am.
Great.
So right after this next break that I think we have, we're going to do something called One Last Thing. Is that right? So let's go to that break.
Kelsey goes, yes.
All right, guys, you have signed up, right? You've joined freedomsquare.com. If you haven't, why not? This should have happened
a decade ago. How did somebody not think of this earlier? If you're a business owner, we have a business directory to promote your business to patriots across the nation. So if you want to buy American, if you want to sell American, we have a business directory. Whatever it is, go now.
Join us in the fight for freedom. Welcome to Freedom Square.
It's a great Sebastian Gorka.
Gorka.
With Relief Factor. No, we love Seb. He's a friend of the Charlie Kirk Show on the Salem Radio Network. And if you're not subscribed to the Charlie Kirk Show podcast, I'd highly suggest that you do it. All these ideas that we're discussing here on the couch, with the stringent time limit that we're held to, they are discussed in depth and in full length on the Charlie Kirk Show.
This is true.
Anything else anyone want to plug before we go into the one last thing? You want to plug
We're
Reloaded?
working on Reloaded Season 2, and it's going to be legit. I'm shooting off of helicopters, full auto.
absolutely.
We're doing.
It's going to be so
and
good.
What I love too is that it's way more lifestyle. So good. I love it.
And that's what the great Paige Rue is doing. Lily, you got anything going for you?
Oh man, I'm just working my tail off over here, getting all the, ambassadors ready to go for our events. We've got huge events coming up. SAS is after
That's right.
YWLS. I love our events. It's my bread and butter. And then, just hanging out here on the couch.
What's your social media handle so people can follow you?
Lily Stanley, USA.
Very patriotic, Lily. Thank you. Very cool. And Sarah Hodge, CEO
right.
of American Freedom Company. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Coming to the
Find
Turning
us.
Point office.
Thank you.
That we're going to show you more of right now on something that we're doing every Friday called a brand new segment called What's New at HQ. So what's new at HQ? Tell us.
My name is Braden Ellis, and I'm an associate producer over at Turning Point USA Live.
My name is Ruby Halperin, and I'm an assistant producer on Frontlines and Live.
My name is Rachel Baker, and I am TPUSA's live feed administrator.
My name is Aubrey Leitch, and I'm one of the associate producers of TPUSA Live.
TPUSA Live, it's everything you want from political commentary. We cover groundbreaking news, breaking news, controversial topics, hot takes. We have it all. We have Alex Clark, Joe Bob, John Root. We have all the commentary, all the personalities you would want to hear from Turning Point USA Live, and it gives young people an out.
I am an assistant producer, so I get stuff in the script ready. All of the assets and videos that we put up, I find those and I put them in the script. And I also do social clippings. So anything that you see on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube clips, I chop those up and I get those on, so it's easy to watch, it's short, it's fun.
A day in the life of a TPUSA Live producer is pretty hectic, I'm not gonna lie. We have a great time, but we really have to buckle down and get our stuff together. First thing in the morning, we get here at 8:30. Myself and Braden sit down, we read over the script that we kind of plotted out the day before. We go and we search through all different kinds of news articles to make sure that we are up to date on the latest and greatest breaking news. Then from there, Braden is running a pre-show meeting where he sits down with all of our guests, including out-of-town guests, contributors, John Root himself, and kind of giving us a rundown and a breakdown of the show, starting with the daily briefing and ending with one last thing. He does an excellent job at that, just kind of giving the details, making sure that everybody is up to speed. Then from there, our executive producer Kelsey and I go into the control room and we check those digital assets, make sure those photos and those videos are up to date, making sure all the backgrounds are ready to go as well, that all the audio from the videos sounds good, all the mics sound great, they can hear us in the IFB, so that we can harass them while they're on TPUSA Live, obviously. There's nothing better than giving John Root a hard time while he's out there. And then from there, the show goes live. We're listening in on Frontlines with Drew Hernandez for a little while. And then from there, they toss it on over to John Root. And Kelsey and I kind of stay in the back in the control room, kind of doing some quality control, making sure the show goes well. And all is good, communicating with Braden as well as Ruby. What is it like working on the TPUSA Live team? It is absolutely phenomenal. There's nothing else that I would rather be doing. I feel really, really blessed to be here. All my coworkers are absolutely wonderful. We are all kind of main characters in our own way. And we have this really awesome, cohesive kind of blend of different personalities, as well as different strengths and different weaknesses. And what it's like working on the TPUSA Live team is really just the epitome of teamwork, in my opinion. We catch each other when we fall, we praise each other when we do well. Working on the TPUSA Live team has by far been the biggest blessing to come to my life, probably ever, or at least in a very, very long time.
I love that takedown.
That was so cool.
I haven't seen that one.
Let me tell you, the live team works hard.
I will tell you that much. Shout out to the entire live team.
Mhm.
Braden,
Yes.
Kelsey, let's see, Kylie, who started the whole ordeal alongside
Absolutely.
John,
Mhm.
Sarah, Marina, Ruby, Rachel, Savannah, David, John, Marina, Charlie,
Yourself.
plenty of other people that I'm probably missing, but I love you all very dearly. Aubrey, obviously. Hi, I heard you in my ear. But I feel you in my heart every day. Anyway, I'm Connor Clegg. Great work, everybody. Paige, Sarah, Lily.
Thank you so much.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
God bless America.
Amen.
And Human Events Daily is coming up next.
Great job, everybody.
How much does the earth cost? I'm gonna buy the entire earth.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard today's edition of Human Events Daily, powered by Turning Point USA. Today's top stories. The United States has admitted to spreading disinformation about Russian chemical weapons in Ukraine. Next, 4 more U.S. school teachers charged with sexual abuse of minors. 2 D.C. men arrested for impersonating federal agents and were also caught cozying up to Jill Biden's security detail. And finally, Peter Thiel blasting Warren Buffett and others at the Bitcoin conference. All of this and more ahead, Human Events Daily.
And now Putin's back against the wall. He wasn't anticipating the extent or strength of our unity. And the more his back is against the wall, the greater the severity of the tactics he may employ. We've seen it before. He's run a lot of false flag operations. Whenever he starts talking about something he thinks NATO, Ukraine, or the United States is about to do, it means he's getting ready to do it. Not a joke. He's asserting that we, America, have biological as well as chemical weapons in Europe. Simply not true. I guarantee you. They're also suggesting that Ukraine has biological and chemical weapons in Ukraine. That's a clear sign he's considering using both of those. He's already used chemical weapons in the past, and we should be careful what's about to come.
Well, that was President Biden telling us all, and we remember this, and we were horrified by this, and we wanted to get to the truth of the matter, because he told the world that Russia was planning to use chemical weapons on the territory of Ukraine during this invasion. However, NBC is out now with none other than Ken Delany. And Ken Delany, if you don't know who this guy is, he is a CIA cutout. And I know, oh, that's crazy. That's like Alex Jones level. You can't just accuse someone of being a CIA cutout. Well, actually, I'm not, because he was fired from his previous job in journalism for sending his stories to the CIA for their approval before they were released. Then he gets hired by none other than NBC. Funny how that works. So listen to this. It was an attention-grabbing assertion that made headlines around the world. U.S. officials said they had indications suggesting Russia might be preparing to use chemical weapons in Ukraine. President Joe Biden said it publicly, but 3 U.S. officials told NBC News this week that there is no evidence Russia has brought any chemical weapon near Ukraine. They said the U.S. released the information to deter Russia from using the banned munitions. Hold on, sorry, what? You didn't have evidence of this? What does this mean? The next paragraph continues, and this is horrifying, that our U.S. government was straight up lying to us about what's going on in Ukraine. It's one of a string of examples of the Biden administration's breaking with recent precedent by deploying declassified intelligence as part of a raw information war against Russia. Wait, hold on a second. The United States is now admitting, according to these officials in this NBC News report, that they are waging an information war against Russia. Because I thought that was crazy. I thought that was just something that people like Jack Posobiec talk about on Human Events Daily. The United States would never admit to waging a disinformation campaign, certainly not in a time of war. I mean, if there's any time you know you can trust the U.S. government and the mainstream media, it's certainly in a time of war, because the United States would never lie about war. The administration has done so. Listen to this. I love this. We have to do the Troy McClure voice for this. The administration has done so even when the intelligence wasn't rock solid, officials said, to keep Russian President Vladimir Putin off balance. That's the way Mark Levin says it. Putin. Coordinated by the White House National Security Council, unprecedented intelligence releases have been so frequent and voluminous, officials said, that intelligence agencies had to devote more staff work to work on the declassification, scrubbing the information so it wouldn't betray sources and methods. All right, let's cut the crap for a second. I worked in the intelligence community. I have a little bit of an idea of how the intelligence cycle works. I've worked as a collector, I've worked as an analyst, I've worked as an officer, serving in the intelligence community all around the world. Here's the way the sausage is made. You get information in, whether it be SIGINT, whether it be HUMINT, whether it be imagery, right? There's other, intelligence disciplines out there, but those are the three big ones. Those are the three big ones. You get it from a human, you get it from a communications intercept, or you get it from a satellite image. But you have to corroborate that, because you get an initial point in that's called raw intelligence. Somebody says something on a phone. Doesn't mean it's true, but you can say, oh, we have intelligence of it. Or somebody says it in a debriefing or interrogation, right? Well, that doesn't make it true. That means somebody said something. Or you see something with a satellite image. Okay, I can see something. I know this thing was happening on the ground, but you still need to do more work. Well, what they're saying is that they're getting these rumors, they're getting these raw intelligence reports, or in other cases, just straight up disinformation, and spreading it as part of an information. And this is what Victor Davis Hanson and Jan Jekielek were talking about the other day, that the United States' greatest contribution in this fight is the information war, the propaganda war that's being waged. Lies are all around us, folks.
We had a mother from Leon County, and her daughter was going to school, and some people in the school had decided that the daughter was really a boy and not a girl. So they changed the girl's name to a boy's name, had her dress like a boy, and doing all this stuff without telling the mother or getting consent from the mother. First of all, they shouldn't be doing that at all. But to do these things behind the parent's back and to say that the parent should be shut out, that is wrong. 4 more U.S. school teachers charged with sexual abuse of minors. Now, Post Millennial wrote this up based on a tweet that I did yesterday, and we were talking about stories that happened in California, Florida, Iowa, and North Carolina all this week. But I didn't do a deep dive into all the cases that came out this week. I just happened to be looking for something yesterday, and I found 4 of these stories just running a basic Twitter search. And we can go through this. California, 56-year-old math teacher Gary Langren of Fortuna High School faces alleged allegations of sexual assault from at least 2 students. The pair came forward with claims of inappropriate contact linked to the teacher being placed in administrative leave. He posted bail.
Florida, 30-year-old Thomas Dean was a former teacher at the Canterbury private school. Now he faces charges of lewd or lascivious battery and lewd or lascivious molestation with a minor as far back as February. He met the victim, who is said to be between the ages of 12 and 16, on the app called Grindr. From there, it progressed to a sexual encounter. They said the victim was not a student of the school, but Dean was no longer employed there. Iowa, 41-year-old former English teacher Justin David Rapier faces multiple counts of charges of sexual exploitation by a school employee. In the latest case, he was arrested for abusing a high school girl at his home in Cedar Rapids on 2 separate occasions. It turns out that the sexual contact, according to text and social media messages, occurred over the course of several years. And then finally, North Carolina, 27-year-old Sean C. Hicks, a science teacher at the Harnett Central Middle School until earlier this year, faces 3 charges of indecent liberties with a student and is jailed on $50,000 bond. The news brought shock and disbelief to the surrounding community. Keep in mind, we're talking about a middle school. Each infraction happened at the subject's home. So all of these situations of school teachers in public schools, some in private schools, take place amid the ongoing controversy regarding these anti-grooming laws that people are placing. And I think there's a problem right here because the media does not talk about the epidemic of child sex offenses that's going on in our schools in this country. And this isn't something recent. This has been going on for years and years and years. And yet the media does not cover it. Hollywood won't touch it. You don't get these, huge feature films about the school teachers that are doing this. They don't talk about it. Every once in a while, though, if you go into the data and you actually go into the literature on this, they call it pass the trash, right? So what's pass the trash? That's when they know there's a teacher who has problems, the teachers' unions and the school boards, they cover it up. And they transfer them to another school because they think, oh, we'll transfer them and then it's not our problem anymore. They didn't get caught. We'll send them off. And guess what? The cycle starts again because you're not doing anything to stop the criminal from preying on these children. It's like that classic line when they asked the bank robber, back in the early 1900s, why do you rob banks? And he said, because that's where the money is, right? Why do school teachers target children? Or why do pedophiles go into becoming school teachers? Because that's where the children are. So understand, like I said the other day, gun violence, the problem isn't law-abiding gun owners. The problem is criminals. In this instance, obviously, the problem isn't teachers. The problem is pedophiles and a teaching institution that covers it all up. And so you won't hear about this. You won't hear about the epidemic. You won't hear about the statistics, and you can dig into this. 10 times more likely than other places, 100 times more likely than other church institutions, religious institutions. Yet there's no focus on this whatsoever. So when you get governors like Governor DeSantis who come up and say we need to protect the children, and we can't be talking about sexualizing children at this extremely young age in an area and in a context of an environment where we know is rife with child pedophiles. And by the way, I love the media. As we talked about yesterday, they're saying, oh, it's a red scare. This isn't going on. It's not happening. Okay, it's not happening. I just went to Twitter and I found 4 stories just this week. And it took me about, 10 seconds of searching to find 4 actual cases of teachers being charged, not over the past year, not over the past 5 years, this week, just this week, across the country, 4 separate states. And I can do it again and again and again. We'll go into the data on this, and Human Events will research this, and we will get into this. So we're going to put out the data now. We are going to find out exactly how many teachers there are that are doing this. We're going to find out the percentage. We're going to find out the ratio, and we're going to compare it to other institutions in this country, because this is something that the media, Hollywood, the teachers' unions, the left do not want to talk about. Our public schools are rampant with violence, and year after year, day after day, we get more and more stories like this.
A service agent from the First Lady's detail was placed on administrative leave after they associated with and were provided gifts from 2 men who were pretending to be Homeland Security investigations agents. Is the First Lady aware of this? The President aware of this? How concerned are they?
I don't have any comment from here. I'd point you to the Secret Service and others investigating.
So do you have any further guidance on what these two men were after or who they may have been working with?
It's being investigated, and I would point you to the proper agencies for any further comment. Go ahead.
So it's time for another edition in Our Government Are Idiots, and it's being run by insane people. Our national security industry is a joke, and they have no idea what they're doing. From the Daily Mail, 2 fake Homeland Security agents, one with ties to Pakistani intelligence and multiple Iranian visas, spent 18 months infiltrating and buying gifts for Jill Biden, the First Lady's Secret Service detail in a luxury D.C. apartment where they all lived and partied. I'm sorry. I'm just like, I look at this, and we're told that these agencies, we're supposed to believe everything they say, when just earlier today they admitted that they lie to us. They admit they're spreading disinformation as part of an information war. Now we're being told that these people who, right, they're supposed to have full scope. If you want to be a Secret Service agent, you've got to go through all the rigorous training. You've got to go through the testing, full scope background investigation, and a full lifestyle polygraph, right? I've done full lifestyle polys. They're a lot of fun. You got to talk about all sorts of fun stuff. You know, have you ever done this? How many times have you done that? Have you done this in your life? Have you done that in your life? You go through all of it, and the U.S. government records every piece of it down. And we're supposed to be told that because of this rigorous vetting process, that these people are the best of the best. They are serving in our national security team, our national security state. And then we get stories like this, where apparently these guys, who may have been intel assets, essentially infiltrated the Secret Service by telling people that they were Homeland Security agents. And the story, by the way, is even crazier than that. So these two guys, Haider Shah Ali, 36, and Aryan Cherzada, 40, were arrested on Wednesday for impersonating federal agents within the Department of Homeland Security. The duo claimed to be involved with an investigation into the Jan 6 Capitol attack. Oh, of course. So they said that they were investigating January 6 and were undercover, and at everybody else, because they know that our national security agencies are controlled by blue anon idiots, that they totally bought it hook, line, and sinker. Great job, Jan 6 committee. You guys just got used by foreign intelligence services to sneak into our own secret service. Agents with the FBI, NCIS, and USPIS swarmed several floors and units of the luxury apartment building. A former representative of Crossing D.C. who worked at the building since the start of Tizada's lease confirmed that none of the units were being paid for. When asked why they were not paying rent on the units, the individual responded one word: government. According to sources, the Tishman Speyer-owned building cooperated with them, believing the guys that they were federal agents. So these guys were lying to the building and said they were government, and that's why they didn't have to pay rent, which obviously isn't true because the Secret Service has to pay rent where they're there. They're doing $30,000 a month covering Hunter Biden. Building management, the sources allege, provided the duo with access to surveillance cameras and codes to access all doors in the building, believing that they were Homeland Security agents. A member of building management sent emails to tenants on 11/30 saying the FBI concluded its search and is no longer on the presence. So what was going on here? They tricked a D.C. luxury apartment building and its high-profile residents and appeared to convince the Metro Police Department that they were working for the government. They had all this money that they were throwing around, and they were impersonating agents in order to fund a lavish lifestyle and a slew of gifts. Said in the affidavits that they successfully ingratiated with themselves with Secret Service agents, at least 2 who were reportedly given rent-free penthouse and multiple bedroom luxury apartments, as well as high-end electronics and policing equipment. This is just, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And in the arraignment, they were told that there could be connections between them and the Pakistani intelligence services. This is the corruption. They used our own corruption against us, the corruption and the greed of these people. That avarice is part of human nature, but apparently moral fiber is not something that national security agencies are looking for right now. And number 2, they used January 6th as a coverall for everything they were doing, and it was bought hook, line, and sinker. If they had paid rent, they probably never would have been caught. That was your problem, guys. That was your problem. They followed the money.
Bitcoin is not a company. It does not have a board. We do not know who Satoshi is. It is the finance gerontocracy that runs the country through whatever silly virtue signaling / hate factory term like ESG they have, versus what I would call, what we have to think of as a revolutionary youth movement. And we have to just go out from this conference and take over the world. Thank you very much.
Peter Thiel blasting Warren Buffett, Jamie Dimon, Larry Fink, the finance gerontocracy at the Bitcoin conference that's being held, I believe it's, Miami, Florida right now. This is amazing. So Peter Thiel straight up calling out ESGs, calling out these liberal billionaires for what they're doing and the way that they're trying to ruin our country. They're trying to remake our country. We heard Larry Fink the other day said that he believed that BlackRock, their role was forcing behaviors on society. Warren Buffett blasted Warren Buffett. Funny enough, I'll actually be in Omaha this Saturday, be in Omaha tomorrow night, speaking to the Freedom Coalition as the Take Back Nebraska Summit. Very excited for that. Be there with Raheem, be there with Tanya and the kids are coming. But I think what Thiel has said here is amazing, and I think we really need to pay attention to this. And he's very long, obviously, on Bitcoin, but because he sees Bitcoin as having the ability to break up what he calls the finance gerontocracy. I remember going to the RNC in 2016. It was the first time I heard Peter Thiel speak in person. And he was one of the only people who was speaking at that event that I actually wanted to go in and sit down to hear what he had to say. And so I listened to his speech. And he said something during that speech that has always resonated with me. He said, after the fall of the Soviet Union, the United States had a choice. We had the peace dividend, and we had no natural ally or no natural enemies anywhere in the world. We could have gone to Mars, but we invaded the Middle East instead. And we spent all that money, all that time, all those resources, all those lives, instead of using that for an expansive space program that would actually progress our society, actual progress, right, into the future, we decided to blow up the Middle East over some pipeline politics. So understand the choice that could have been made. And it was amazing because I could just feel the propaganda falling off of me, right, from all the years in the intelligence community, all the years where you're telling yourself, we're on the right side, we're doing the right thing, we're doing the right thing, we're doing the right thing. And you look at it and you say, why are we doing this? Why does it matter so much? Who is this protecting? At this point, 20 years in, 15 years in, we've already got the guys who did 9/11. Why are we still here? Why are we still doing this? Thiel was right then, and he's certainly right now. And he points out that ESGs are nothing more than a scam used to control people in the same authoritarian style as the CCP uses. That's the exact. I wonder if Peter Thiel, perhaps, I don't know, Producer Shaw, we might need to check this out. Is Peter Thiel a secret listener of Human Events Daily? I don't know. We're gonna have to look into the Thiel network, see if we can reach out, find out what's going on. I don't know. Maybe Blake Masters knows. Well, that's all the time we have here. Human Events Daily for today, for this week that wraps it up. But remember our promise, our oath, our solemn vow to you. Be good, be brief, be going. Your homework for us, share this out with just one of your normie friends, and leave us your 5-star review, Apple, Spotify. What did we talk about today? The United States admitting to spreading disinformation about Russian chemical weapons. 4 more U.S. school teachers charged with sexual abuse of minors. Guess what? That starts with grooming. Next, 2 men were arrested, foreigners in D.C., for impersonating federal agents cozying up to Jill Biden's security detail. And finally, Peter Thiel blasting Warren Buffett and the finance gerontocracy. But before we go, it's time for today's moment of history. This Saturday marks the anniversary of the Battle of Appomattox Courthouse, the final engagement between the North and the South, the Union and the Confederacy in the Civil War, which ended with the encirclement of the Army and the surrender of the Army of Northern Virginia. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, you have my permission to lay ashore.
Today's episode is all about leaving one community in search of another. And as we're about to see, sometimes that process means risking literally everything and even being alone for a while. But it doesn't always have to be that way, at least not for long. Whether you grew up conservative or recently left the left, there is a conference for you where you no longer have to feel alone. So many conservatives have felt alone after being shunned by a community of friends, family, coworkers, teammates. And this is why events like Turning Point USA's Young Women's Leadership Summit exist. From June 2nd to the 4th in Dallas, Texas, you can come and be a part of a community that will accept you for your conservative beliefs. You'll make friends from all over the country, dive into pro-America ideas, and hear from some of the boldest and most fabulous speakers in the conservative movement. Whether you're a student, a working gal, or even a mom, this event is for you. Trust me. Go to tpusa.com/YWLS right now and use code POPLITICS to get 25% off your tickets. I cannot wait to see all of your cinnamon roll faces. Growing up, there was always that one kid who threatened to run away. Do you know what I'm talking about? They'd pack a bag and get on their bike and make it a few blocks before realizing that, maybe actually I miss my snacks or my movies or video games or whatever. Maybe I should get home for dinner. You might have been that kid. Personally, I definitely would run away a few times. When I would get mad, I would pack like a couple items in my Barbie suitcase and I would walk into the backyard and then I would turn around. Really, I think it was a detention thing. I just wanted to see my mom or my dad or somebody come after me and be like, Alex, you can't leave. We would never be able to survive without you. But, really, how else was I supposed to get my chicken nugget fix if it wasn't from my parents? I had to go back for that and my chicken noodle soup. Oh, speaking of kids who run away, remember King Curtis from one of my favorite wife swap episodes ever?
I am leaving and you can't stop me. I'm packing my bags. And a very, very calm day until this. A bump in the road comes, and she's being sarcastic.
Curtis.
I won't be coming back until Saturday when you leave. She's going to try to stop me, but she can't run in those little high heels. Never see this face again.
Literally a reality show icon. Obviously, we can laugh about that, but there are also kids and teenagers who run away due to very unique and serious circumstances. And their reasoning has nothing to do with not being allowed to eat bacon, I can tell you that. What if it has everything to do with the lifestyle you've been raised in? What if all you've known is a world so stuck in the past that you are stifled of the ability to grow? What if you have zero idea what even happens in the outside world? What if running away means you might never speak to your family and friends ever again? Leaving everything you know under such circumstances is grueling and unimaginable if you've never walked in similar shoes. Today's guest was a teenager when she ran away from her home in Ohio. She was raised in one of the most strict Amish communities in America. The lifestyle was very old-fashioned. Think Amish, no electricity or plumbing, and a hierarchy between men and women. You don't express yourself uniquely. You aren't educated like other kids in America. And you are raised to believe that leaving the community means you will go to hell. When our guest finally decided to escape, she literally risked everything. She was born in the same country as myself and many of you, but her life in an Amish community was worlds away from the average American. Now she is a wife, mother, and works with people to help them achieve health and fitness lifestyles. Here to talk about life in an Amish community, including dating, which really I wouldn't even say is dating. It's more like rolling, but I'll have to have her explain that to you. Plus, her escape story that will have you holding your breath is Lizzie Ens. Please welcome her to The Spillover. I've actually never met someone who was raised in the Amish community, from the Amish community, nothing, ever. I don't know anyone in my life. And so you're the first person, Lizzie, that I've ever talked to who's lived that lifestyle. And I know that your community was located in Ohio, and I know that there are tons of different types of Amish communities throughout the country. So based on some of my research, it seems like your former community was or is pretty conservative, like as in not necessarily politically or I don't know, but like you don't use a lot of technology and things like that. So I really want you to just paint the picture for us of what it was like, first of all.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you for having me here. And second, you're in for a treat. It's going to be awesome. So to kind of describe what it actually is to grow up there and what that picture looks like is there's no electronics, there's no indoor plumbing, there's no running water. You know, the women are supposed to wear their hair under a covering 24/7. Only if they wash them and dry them, it can be out of the covering. No cutting hair for the women. The guys can cut their hair. Dresses worn all the way down to the ankles all the time. And then we pretty much like grow up on a farm and, you know, live off the land as much as we possibly can, and ride in a horse and buggy. And the only time that we were allowed to ride in a car was if there was an emergency and you had to go to the doctor or a hospital or something like that. But other than that, it was horse and buggy. So.
And how many siblings do you have and where do you fall in the birth order?
So I have 18 siblings.
Holy crap.
And I have a twin sister and we were 9 and 10.
Okay.
So we were like dead center of the entire gang.
Is there a name for this type of Amish community that you grew up in that people familiar with the Amish would be like, oh yeah, that type?
Yes. So where I grew up, the sect that I grew up in is called Swartzentruber Amish. And then there's old order Amish, there's new order Amish, and when you get to that level of Amish, they're going to be a little bit more modern. They're going to have more things like they're going to have tractors to farm with where I did not, like where I grew up, they just used horses.
Wow.
And so there wasn't even tractors. But then there's also like all the sects that are in between those ones, and there's too many to name. But yes.
So, okay, there's so many things I want to ask. First of all, it sounds like you have an accent to me.
I do.
What is that? Do Amish people speak another language?
Yes.
Okay, could you explain that a little bit?
So we speak Pennsylvania Dutch as our first language, and it's not like Netherlands Dutch. It's kind of like a combo of German and Swiss. And we learn German in school. So Pennsylvania Dutch is our first language. And then we learn German and English in school. And the reason we learn German is not because we speak it. We don't ever speak it, but the Bibles and the hymn books that they sing out of are in German. So we have to learn it because of that.
And why was your community so much stricter than other Amish communities?
Honestly, it stems way, way back to when the Amish actually originally started. And it's a break off of the Anabaptist, and there's a whole history there, but they came over from Switzerland and Eastern Europe and those areas. And there was a guy that wanted to kind of break off and go Amish, or I don't even know how they came up with the name, but that's the direction that he wanted to go. And so they created this community of Amish people, and their way of thinking of how they should live is, you know, less modern. But
why?
Because in their eyes, that's the way that the Bible looked and talked, is like they didn't have anything modern back in those days. So that's the way that they viewed that we should be living, and the way that God would want us to live now. And so that's sort of like where it started. There's a whole lot more history to it than that. But what's funny is the guy that broke off and wanted to start the Amish church, eventually he came back and he was like, no, like this is going too far. I don't want to do this anymore. And the group that had already transitioned was like, no, we're going to stay here. This is the route that we need to go. And so he didn't continue, but they did. And then, you know, just like
he's like, oh man, this is like crazy. This is what I was thinking.
So he didn't continue, but then from there, it's just a matter of, churches start here and there, and they start making up their own rules, and they're still doing it. They're still having churches that break off because they can't get along, and then they break off and create a new church. And I look back at it, and I look at it now, and I hear like what's happening, even with my own siblings that are like breaking off and going to a new church or starting a new church, and I'm like, you guys are crazy.
Dude, it sounds kind of like Real Housewives of Amish Country. Like, I want that reality show. I know there's been like a TLC, what was that?
Breaking Amish.
Yeah, Breaking Amish. Like, I want kind of like a Housewives Amish edition. I don't know. It kind of sounds like there's some good drama there. Sounds kind of
Yeah, if you get into that. We're not technically supposed to know what happens within the church there, but I do.
In your own words, how is the outside world viewed? And is it actually referred to as the outside world, or does your community use a special term for it?
They call them English.
Oh, English. Those English people.
If you're not Amish, you're English.
Interesting.
I wouldn't use that term now, but it's funny. It's kind of funny. They don't have any other way to, any other term to use, so they call them English because they speak English, and they don't.
I was hoping you were going to say something like the others.
No, that would be funny.
Okay, so what were you taught about the English? What were you taught about people that didn't live the Amish lifestyle? Were they evil? Were they corrupt? Were they bad? Were they totally fine? It's just not how we live life.
Definitely corrupt. It doesn't matter how good of a person they presented to be. They still, thought that Amish people are the only people that can go to heaven, because that's the way that God would want you to live, and that's your way. But it's by works. Like, you have to be a good person, listen to the rules, and that not the rules that God created or anything like that. The rules that the church created, and so that's their view. Is like, you have to abide to the rules.
So the other thing I'm trying to figure out too is you're talking about no technology at all, not even calculators.
No.
So, I mean, when I say technology, I mean even like a blender, like anything that plugs in, nothing?
Nothing.
And
think of all the things you can plug into the wall in your house right now. It doesn't exist, not even a fan.
Not even
there's
a fan.
No outlets. There's no electricity.
So are you lighting candles to see at night?
We weren't even allowed to have candles.
What do you mean, Lizzie? There's no candles allowed?
No.
What do you do at night?
Kerosene lights.
Oh my gosh, why are candles bad?
I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe because the English use them.
This is wild. I mean, this is, when I say I've literally never, I just haven't. Like, well, the closest I've ever come to an Amish person in my life was like going to an Amish bakery.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, in which, by the way, the best baked goods I've ever had, the best cinnamon roll. Everyone knows I love cinnamon rolls. The best cinnamon roll I've ever had has been from an Amish bakery. But the thing that I don't understand is if there's, no technology, period, how does news from the outside world get in, or does it not get in?
So we definitely had like relationships with people that were not Amish, and sometimes they would tell us things, but there's a lot about the world that we don't learn and we don't get to know just because we're not exposed to it. They do get some newspapers, so they would find some stuff out from there, but in general, like, they don't know what's going on politically. They might hear like there's a war happening.
Do you vote?
Mm-mm.
No voting.
No voting.
That's interesting to me because I just feel like, I mean, why is that reason? I feel like you guys would want to say and have like a really like moral, faith-based person in presidential office, but.
So they don't want anything to do with the government.
Oh, okay. Living totally off the grid. I mean, a lot of conservatives would be like, okay, I'm here. Yeah. Maybe I should be Amish.
I've had a lot of people say, I want to be Amish. But in reality, it's like you don't, because there's a lot underneath the surface that you just don't know. Because there's a lot, I always say, like, don't be fooled by what's behind the black curtains. Like, there's a lot that goes on behind the black curtains.
There's black curtains all in the studio if you're not watching on YouTube.
So there is a lot that you just don't know. And I was recently thinking about you just asked about, like, you don't even have a blender or a calculator. So I'm thinking like all the things that people don't think about. Well, you literally don't have these things. And, you know, those are the things like people don't think about when they're like, well, I want to live like an Amish person. I'm like, well, you better get ready to get rid of 90% of what you own.
Holy crap. I genuinely cannot imagine. I don't think that would be an interesting reality show too, is to take someone like me who is so far removed from that and be like, you got to live Amish for a week and just put cameras on me and just see how I do. Within a few hours, I would be like, you know, I can't function. But I guess when it comes to controlling like what you are exposed to and things like that, are you allowed to read books? Like, do children read fairy tales?
We had a few books. Obviously, we go to school and we have to learn how to read when we go to school. And there are books that we would read. There's some like fairy tale books that we would read, but my mom would always like check the books and make sure that there's nothing like promiscuous in there. And,
there's nothing wrong with that. We should be doing that now anyway.
Yeah. But it was, you know, nothing crazy. You know, not like reading Harry Potter or anything like that.
Of course, yeah. Well, I wasn't allowed to read Harry Potter either.
I still haven't read Harry Potter, and I won't.
Me neither. But it's my boyfriend's favorite like book and movie series of all time, and I have no desire to read or watch Harry Potter. But I guess what is confusing to me is if you really are limited in the news that you're allowed to consume or hear about. What was even the first headline of breaking news or anything that you remember hearing in your life?
9/11.
Talk about that. How did the Amish community react to hearing about 9/11? And what were you told?
I don't really know how they reacted because I was still pretty young. But that is the one event that I remember hearing about, and they're talking about, you know, the planes flew into the Twin Towers. We didn't even know what Twin Towers were. Like, we didn't know anything about that. So it's just like, well, these planes flew into, and it was so foreign. The concept of it felt like it was like in a complete other part of the world, in like in another country or something. Because you're just like, New York, yeah, I know New York, but there's Amish that live in certain areas of New York, but it's a completely different area than New York City.
Right. And so without TV, do they show you picture books of like places in America? Like, had you seen pictures of New York before?
No.
Electricity, we've established none of that. Plumbing?
No. So the outhouses were on the outside. Like, there was no indoor plumbing, so you couldn't have bathrooms on the inside.
Did you guys interact with other Amish communities that did have things like electricity or plumbing? Were you guys allowed to talk to each other, or was it very competitive? Like, don't talk to them, don't even look them in the eye, they're not one of us. Like, how does that work?
So we knew people in the old order, they did not have electricity, but they did have more advanced technology where they would use like gas-powered things to like run, like maybe a generator. I don't even know if it was called a generator. I just remember my oldest sister lived on a farm where there was old order that owned a farm, and they farmed there, and the old order family that lived there, to us it was way more advanced. And so the power that they used was they would run a motor in another building that would power these gas pipes to run like their shop where they were building things, but it also would run like their washing machine to do laundry. So the way we did laundry was like run a tiny little engine that had a belt to the washing machine and then a wringer. Do you know what a wringer is?
Yes.
So you had to run all the clothes through that wringer and then hang it out on the lines outside to dry. So get rid of your dryer and your washer if you want to go Amish.
No thanks. This sounds like it just sounds to me like so much extra work that's unnecessary. That's what I'm like. But some technology I think has been so detrimental to us. Like, I think about social media and things like that, and I just think it's gotten so out of control for the negative. And then I just think, but there are also some inventions that I just think have really genuinely made life better for us. And that's interesting to me that they want to live without it, because I'm just like, man, if you would just do one thing, like a dishwasher or something, like, What a time saver. Those are great inventions.
Oh, that's why they have kids. All the kids have little hands that do
Now we're getting down to it. Okay, we're understanding it. So, I mean, for someone that's totally ignorant about the Amish, though, is it that the Amish just choose to live like very minimal, but they have a lot of money, or is it more like impoverished?
It depends.
Okay.
So we never had a lot of money growing up. There was 19 kids of us. And then my dad actually died when I was 15. So my mom was left with like 18 kids that were still at home. And so we never had a lot of money. We made it, but like money wasn't, it was always felt like it was scarce.
What was the family business?
Farming.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but there are some Amish people that are very wealthy, and it depends on if they own a business or I think that in the old order and the new order, they're definitely a lot wealthier.
And what is the old order versus new order?
Old order and new order, there's small differences in what they're allowed to have. Like I think new order, they have like rubbers around their buggy wheels, so their buggy is like really quiet. They just have a little bit more stuff.
Some Amish people drive cars, right?
Not drive them, they ride in them.
Oh. Who's the driver?
So the old order. So if you were to go to Amish country where I lived, in Ohio, you could ask someone like, "Oh, what do you do for work?" "I'm a driver for the Amish." So they'll own like 15 passenger vans.
It's like an Uber driver specifically.
An Amish Uber driver.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, but it's specifically for Amish people.
Could anyone just say, "Hey, I think I just want to join the Amish community," and join, or what is the process? You have to be born into it?
You pretty much have to be born into it. There's been people that have done it or tried to, and the process is very difficult because they're not open to receiving it very well. And there was this one guy when I was still there. There was this one guy that tried so hard to join the Amish church. He wanted to get baptized, become a member, and by the time they would get to the point of baptizing him to actually like make him a member of the church, no church would do it. And I believe that one of the reasons why the church didn't want to do it is they know how difficult it is for someone that was not born into it and they had all these things and they have to get rid of everything. And so he had a hard time because he's like, I don't understand why I can't have music. So he would be driving
Not
down
even a musical instrument?
Mm-mm.
No music at all?
Nothing.
That's sad.
Yeah. So I remember like they would catch him like driving down the road in his horse and buggy and he was listening to music and they would, be like, you can't have that. And so they just knew.
What's the punishment for something like that? Is there punishments?
Well, so we snuck around with it. And if you got caught with it, then they destroy it. And then there's some sort of punishment if let's say you're in the dating world and you're in that age range, they'll take that away from you for a while and say you can't participate in any of the dating stuff. So that was part of punishment. Other than that, that was about it.
What's the dating stuff? Is that like arranged marriages or?
No.
You actually get to date each other and go on dates?
Okay, let's talk about dating. It's very interesting and it's very weird.
Why is it weird? She's got stories. She's like, let's talk about it.
Let's talk about dating. I did a story about this on Instagram one time. I was talking about it and I was like, I was laughing so hard because it's so ridiculous.
Oh my gosh, please.
So they're only allowed to date at night.
Okay.
Now, there's no premarital sex, supposed to. And there's not arranged marriages. However, here's how they approach it. There may be 2 or 3 guys, and they are going to ask a very specific guy, do you want to go on a date with Lizzie? And if the guy says yes, now those guys will come and ask me, do you want to go on a date with this guy? I can say yes or I can say no. If I say no, they're going to be like, come on, do it. The basically
Who's they? Like your parents?
No, the guys.
Oh,
the other
okay.
guys. Parents have nothing to do with this.
Okay.
And if I say yes, they're going to come to our house, my house where I live, and the guy that I'm going on a date with spends the night. The other guy's in the bed.
With you?
With me.
Whoa! But you're not allowed to touch each other or have premarital sex. So you just have to
there's
lay there?
touching.
Oh, on the first date? There's touching? What does that mean?
Here's the date. Okay. Guy comes to the house, and okay, so they could either come to your house on a Saturday night and be like, just come up to your room and be like, hey, do you want to go on a date with this guy tonight while I'm sleeping? And
oh my gosh.
If I say yes, okay, here comes the guy who wants to go on this date with me, but he doesn't actually ask me. They ask for him. And so then if I say yes, he'll come up and everybody will hang out for a bit, just sit up and talk and whatever. And then the guys that are not there for the date, they will leave. And the guy that's there for the date will stay there. The lights go out. You're supposed to, date laying down in bed, and you hug and you kiss and whatever. And then maybe you fall asleep if it's boring, or maybe you stay up and talk all night.
Oh my gosh, this is the most fascinating thing I've ever, this is genuinely the most fascinating thing I've ever heard. I'm on the edge of my seat. This is crazy. It seems like a made up story.
It does. That's why I have to laugh.
So when you say, and you can be totally just brutally honest, okay? So maybe not for little ears. I don't know. Maybe it's fine. But when you say touching on the first date is allowed, but not premarital sex, I mean, does that mean literally anything goes besides sex, or
no.
over the clothes touching, or what?
So touching means, okay, we may be laying there and the guy, and this is a rule, they have to do it. And so, he'll wrap his arms around you, and you're supposed to wrap his arms around you. They're supposed to roll around for a little bit and then either kiss you on the cheek or on the lips.
And what does it mean? Is it bad if he only kisses you on the lips or on the cheek and not the lips?
I do think that's a thing. If he kisses you on the cheek, it's he's not really into it.
What is going on with the rolling?
I don't know.
Around?
I remember even when I was there, I was like, this is the stupidest thing that I've ever heard of. This is so dumb.
Is it just awkward?
And awkward. I only went on a couple dates. And then I actually started dating a guy, and we never did that. We were just no. But as far as premarital sex goes, it happens. But if anybody gets pregnant, now we're in for it.
And then what happens?
Are
you allowed to keep the baby?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Although I did hear that I have recently, since I've left, I have heard in some orders, they have been, and I don't know which order it is, but I have heard that there are some communities that the teenagers, it's so bad, they're partying and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. So these girls are getting pregnant, and they're providing abortions for them. And I'm just since when did this happen?
That's crazy. Okay, wait. Partying in the Amish community. Were there parties in your community? Because there's no music. Is there alcohol allowed?
All of that's not allowed.
Okay, but
it's just that
it in. It's prohibition.
Mm-hmm. So we're sneaking it. So I got introduced to music when I was 16.
What was the first song you ever heard?
I don't know the song. It was country music.
Okay.
I only remember the first movie that I watched.
What was that?
Do you know the movie Eraser by Arnold Schwarzenegger?
No, but I'm sure that people listening do.
Yeah.
That
was the first one. And then get this. I thought that whoever dies in a movie actually dies for real. So
you didn't understand the concept of
acting.
Acting.
So I was like, wow, if I were an actor, I would never want to be the bad guy because I don't want to die in a movie. Why? But then I started noticing that these same actors start showing up in other movies.
You're like, wait a minute, I thought you were dead.
What's going on? So, all of that stuff was done sneaking around.
How did the Amish community talk about sex when you were talking, Who is doing the teaching? Is it your parents? Is it these other boys that are your age? I don't understand. How do you even learn about it or how it works?
Well, first of all, there's no sex ed. So you're not learning that in school. But when my twin and I started dating, the only thing my mom said to us was, keep your dress on. Literally, that was it. The idea and what even happens with sex and all of that stuff, none of that was talked about. You only get told that stuff when you're engaged to get married.
And who's telling you that?
Then the mom will usually like talk to. But let's be real. We all know what it is by the time we get to that age. We grew up on a farm. There's animals. Teenagers find things out and they talk.
You're like, Mom, I saw those pigs. I know what happened.
I know what happens. You can talk to me.
I think it's safe to say the Amish don't know their way around a great first date, but they do know a thing or two about farming. So does Moink. That's moo plus oink. And they're the meat subscription box that I use. Moink farmers farm just like our grandparents did. As a result, Moink meat tastes like it should. And you can feel good knowing that you're helping farmers stay financially independent by getting your meat from Moink. You choose the meat delivered in every box, everything from ribeyes to pork chops to wild-caught Alaskan salmon straight to your door. I love everything about Moink, from the name to the meat itself, and you will too. Keep America farming by going to moinkbox.com/spillover right now, and Cuteservatives will actually get free filet mignon for a year. That's 1 year of melt-in-your-mouth filet mignon. Oh, yeah! Oh, man, get in my belly! It's the best meat you're ever going to taste. But for a very limited time, go to moinkbox.com/spillover. That's moinkbox.com/spillover. Now, you struggled with body dysmorphia and your weight during this period of your life before your escape, which we're about to get into. But I want to talk about this because it does play a huge part in your story and where you are now in your life. So when did the body dysmorphia struggles start? And was it because you were being bullied by other kids or your family members?
Yeah. So I have a twin sister. And, you know, from the time we were born, I was always the bigger one. I was never obese, but because we were twins and I was bigger than she was, I started to get bullied for it by siblings. And that started, you know, probably 9 or 10 and then into my teen years. And so that really affected me immensely in my mental health and like towards how I viewed my body and what I started doing to try to just get it to shrink and be smaller. It was huge. And I didn't know it at the time, but, you know, it really led into a very poor relationship with my body and then into dieting, even when I was still at home, you know, just starving myself and doing everything I can just to try to get my body to be smaller.
Do you feel like you were battling anorexia?
Probably a little bit now, you know, when I'm thinking about it, because I would, you know, work as hard as I can because we're on a farm and just do extra work all the time. And I don't know where I got that concept from. It's like, if I work harder, I'll, you know, get smaller.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just would eat less. And it wasn't always just, you know, the smallest amount ever, but I would always try to eat less. And then I really started having health issues, even when I was still at home.
What were some of the health issues?
I had major digestive issues. I think that I probably had anemia because I was always cold and tired. My mom would send me to doctors just because, you know, I couldn't hardly work.
So obviously, you said the one exception of going into the outside world was when you did get to go to the doctor or something because you had to. Something was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I assumed there was probably Amish doctors in the community or something, but
yeah, I mean, not
really.
They would have never gone to school,
right? Yeah,
for that.
So when you would go into the outside world to go to the hospital, if something like that happened and you were sick, when you all of a sudden saw computers or television screens or things like that, were you like, what was your reaction?
So it's not like we lived in a place where you never saw that stuff. We walked to school 3 miles each way every single day when we would go to school. So you always saw things through windows. You would see TVs or you'd see people with phones and computers and that stuff. So there was the concept of it was there and we knew that it was there. Using it is a different story, because you really don't, unless you actually like get exposed to using it, you don't really know how it actually works. Your brain hasn't really been activated to it.
Did they teach you how to speak English in your schooling? Like, how did you know how to communicate with doctors in the outside world?
Yeah, English was the #1 language we had to learn in school.
So there had to be a moment where you started thinking, maybe there is a life that I'm curious about on the other side of this. Maybe I don't want to be Amish for the rest of my life. Can you walk us through just what that was like when you first started thinking, what if I left?
Ooh. I don't remember what age I was, but it was pretty young that I felt the stirring. And here's the thing. We had non-Amish neighbors that lived right across the yard from us. Like, we could see pretty much everything they were doing if they were outside. So I watched them a lot. Amish don't do public display of affection. There's no hugging and kissing. There's no I love yous. I was never told I love you by my parents. Like, there's none of that.
Not even behind closed doors. There's no hugs.
No, that's supposed to be for like the married people. And so I would see that, and I was really attracted to it. And I remember thinking one day, like, if I can't do that, like, to my kids that I may have one day, or my husband, then I don't want to be here. So that was part of it. And then 2, I just really didn't understand why the rules that they had were such bad things. You know, and
explain that. What rules were what bad things?
Why is it bad to drive a car? Why is it bad to live in a house that has electricity? Why are these things so bad? And the other, thing that I really didn't understand was why they believe that only Amish people can go to heaven. Like, that didn't. I'm like, why would God put this many people in the world? Why would there be this many people in the world, and he would choose only Amish people to go to heaven? That makes no sense.
Was the Bible that you guys were reading, like the Bible that, I would read, like the Bible everybody reads, or was it a condensed, edited Amish version?
I'm not 100% sure. I do know that they were in German, and they're really hard to understand because, one, it's not your first language. So they don't even understand a lot of the things that they read there. But the other thing is, I don't know how much you know about the Bible, but, we would see a Bible that was not German, and you would read it and be like, oh, this sounds way different than when you're reading it in German.
So it probably was altered.
Yeah. So then there was, I guess like my mom found out, or someone found out, that like non-German Bibles are, the words of Jesus in the Bible are read, so you can see like what Jesus was saying. And they'd be like, don't read those ones. Like that's, to them, it was like, even though they believed in Jesus, like they knew Jesus was like, he's part of the story. But I still don't understand why they thought, I think because it was read, they were like, someone altered it and it's not real. And I think that was their viewpoint of it.
What ended up being the last straw for you where you said, that's it, I'm blowing this popsicle stand?
Oh, gosh. So before that happened, my twin and I, when we were 17, we ran away together for 2 days. And on the second day, one of our brothers found out where we were staying. And he called the house. We were staying at a cousin's house I had left a few years before then. And he's sharing with my twin. I'm not the soft one. She's the soft one. And he's sharing with her, like, Mom's really not doing well. Because they kind of treat it like death. Like, it's like someone died when you leave. It's really bad for them.
When they leave the Amish community, you mean?
Yeah. So for the parents and the siblings, like, they really mourn because you're leaving, and you leave and you're like, oh, I may never see my family again or really do anything with them.
So if you leave, you are risking never ever seeing or talking to your family ever again.
Yep. But on the other hand, you may know, like, you're only going to see them once or twice a year or something like that. It really depends. Like,
So when
it
you-
really varies.
Right. And when your brother's calling and saying, mom is not doing well because she's so brokenhearted that you guys left, your twin is saying like, oh, Lizzie, we should go back. This is too
Mhm.
terrible.
Yeah, so she's like, come pick us up. We can't do this. So we go back and I'm like, I know this is not where I'm supposed to be. I don't want to be here. So the next day I'm like, listen, I'm not staying. Like, I will eventually leave again. And she's like, I know, I will too. I don't want to be here. But 2 years go by, and in between that time and 2 years later, when I then finally left, we become members of the church. So when you become a member of the church, you it's over the course of the summer. You do these specific steps within the church where every Sunday that you're at church, you go, the preachers leave and they go to another room and they prepare for the sermon and everything. You follow them and you sit in that room for an hour or so in preparation, and they're like teaching you like the rules of the church and everything, and then you get baptized. Then you're a member of the church. And once you're a member of the church, now you have to abide to their rules a lot more. And if you do anything that's not within their rules, you're probably going to get in trouble. If it's bad enough, they're going to shun you for a while and then bring you back in. And so once you're a member, you just know a lot more of what's going on within the church, and you see how they start treating people. And I started seeing that. And I was like, I already knew it was bad beforehand, but once I was a member, I was like, this is not okay. Like, first of all, I don't believe in a God that treats people like that. And second, it just didn't feel right. And so I was a member for 6 months. And then I left after that.
Around that time, did you have a boyfriend?
I did.
Did he have any influence on your decision to leave at all?
No. Well, yes and no. So I always knew that I wanted to leave. I just didn't know how. But the thing is, we never talked about it. We never talked about leaving, but he lived in New York. I lived in Ohio.
Okay. How in the world are you, without technology or anything, dating a guy in New York when you're in Ohio? There's no Tinder. How does that happen?
So I had a brother that got married to a girl in New York. And
well, how did he meet her?
We travel. You travel by
you go on vacation?
Sometimes.
You go to the beach?
No. Vacations like...
Oh, probably no, because you would see people with minimal clothes on, right? Oh, yeah.
Vacations like going on a Greyhound or charter bus and going to another state, and you visit other, members of the church or family members or whatever.
So you can't even go into the city and do some shopping or get ice cream or anything?
No.
Dang.
No. So he met her somewhere. I don't know where. But we went to New York for his wedding, and that's where I met the guy that I was then dating when we left. And so, yeah, I lived in Ohio. He lived in New York.
How would you talk? Letters?
We wrote letters.
That's kind of romantic. And honestly, a lot of people are probably like, I almost wish that I had like a love story over letters.
We're
Gen
not
Z's
married today.
Well, at the time, Gen Z is all about nostalgia, Lizzie. Don't you know? They love all that stuff.
That's true. So yeah, we wrote letters, and we probably saw each other like once, maybe twice a year. So we never we were both rebels and like did things we like weren't supposed to do.
Like, what does that
mean? But drinking and listening to music and that kind of stuff. But we had never talked about leaving. And then I was in Ohio, and when I actually left, it was my turn to deliver a letter to him. And I was at my oldest sister's house at the time. She just had a baby, and so I was there helping her out. And I go to deliver the letter in the mailbox, and there's a note in there from him. And the note says, hey, my sister, her boyfriend, and I drove down from New York last night with a mutual friend of ours that had been up there. And we left. And if you want to come, we'll come by and pick you up tonight.
And you knew that he meant we left the Amish community. You want to get in on this.
Yeah. So I had a decision to make. Do I want to leave that night when they come by, and then he's like, or if you don't want to leave, like I'll come by another time and we can talk about it. And it took me 2 seconds to be like, yeah, I'm leaving.
So in a way, wait, what about your twin?
Oh, she's still there.
You didn't tell her I'm leaving tonight? You were going to leave without her?
I didn't tell anybody.
Okay. So
you
walk
kind
us
of
through
have to
this.
like run away. So that was noon, and I said, I'm leaving. And I go back down, and I have to process this because I'm like, okay, I can't tell anybody that I'm leaving. And so my brother-in-law actually, like, we had gotten into an argument like 2 days before. He was trying to tell me off and telling me that I'm being a bad member of the church. And so I became really, really quiet because I'm processing like how I'm going to leave, and this is probably the last time I'm going to have like dinner with them. But I didn't really care. Like, I just knew this was my way out. So I wait until it was bedtime, and I go upstairs as if I was going to bed. And then I wait until they go to bed. And I wrote a little note, and I just said, this has nothing to do with you, but I'm making a decision to leave, and this is something that I have to do. And when I look back to what I wrote on that note, I don't know everything that I wrote, but when I think about what I wrote, I'm like, I don't even know how I knew to say that. I just knew in my gut, like, this is what I'm feeling, and knowing that I need to do has nothing to do with what anybody has ever said or done to me. This is where I need to go. And so I left a note, and then I climbed out the window upstairs to then jump off the roof to leave. So I probably sat on that roof for like 30 minutes just waiting. And I'm like, how am I going to like jump off this roof and not break a bone? Like, I'm probably going to jump off this roof and break a bone. And then there's going to be a story that I jumped off the roof and I was trying to run away. And now I have a broken leg and I'm never going to leave. That was running through my mind. But eventually I do jump, probably like 30 minutes later, and ran away from there.
Did you meet up with this boyfriend of yours?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
he was
where
up the road. I knew he was up there because he had a flashlight and he was like flashing like, I'm here.
Okay, so describe the moment getting into the car and you drive off. Describe everything around you. Are you guys playing music? Are you hollering? Are you like, holy crap, we escaped? What's everyone saying? What's the feeling?
Someone else asked me that a while ago, and I was like, I've never thought about that. Like, what were we actually feeling? Of course there was music. Of course we were really happy, but there's so much adrenaline and still fear because we also still believe that what we're doing is wrong. And so, you feel kind of like you're let out of the cage, but also there's something in the back of your mind going, what you're doing is very wrong, but I'm just going to enjoy this moment for now.
Are there physical barriers that make it hard to walk off the property or the community or however you want to describe it? Or is it just very easy? You can just leave?
I wouldn't say that it's easy to leave, but, they all live on their own land. So it's not physically that the barriers are there. It's more the mental, emotional stuff. Like if you would even tell anybody that you were going to leave, you probably wouldn't end up leaving.
Where was the first place that you guys went that night when you had just escaped?
We went back to our friend's house that had left like 2 years before then, and we all knew each other before he had left. So we went back there and we hung out there. We probably like watched a movie. I don't know what we did. I literally like can't remember what we did when we got back there other than like, I'm like, I need to get out of these clothes. So somehow I need to get money that I can buy new clothes. Because I had $20. That was all I had. And so basically you have to like strip yourself and be like, I got to cut my hair and get new clothes, but I need money to do that.
When you first cut your hair off, and I'm assuming it had to have been unbelievably long.
It was almost down to like my glutes.
And so when that first moment of cutting your hair off, did it feel sad to you or like liberating?
Liberating. I mean, I think I cut them like almost to my shoulders.
And that was
like
a huge, almost like FU to the Amish community, I'm assuming. When you cut your hair, it's like, oh, she's serious.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of rebellion that is happening in those first few steps. It's just like, I'm out. And I'm going to do everything I can to change this. And it's really, also the thing about it is like we really don't know what we don't know until we leave. And so, yes, you left, but you still sort of feel like a foreigner in this world.
Well, yeah, did you even know how to flush a toilet?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of like learn that. I don't know if I had ever been somewhere. Yeah, probably because we would go to a grocery store sometimes.
Okay. So, I mean, I'm just thinking, I'm trying to figure out what you had never even done. Something as basic as like taking a shower, like in a shower.
Yeah, I had never had a shower, never shaved.
Oh,
nothing.
what was that feeling like? Oh my gosh, wait, describe, because I know my feeling. When I first shaved my legs, I was in 5th grade, okay? And I remember it was a big deal. My mom said, finally, you're allowed to shave your legs. And I just all night was rubbing my hand on my leg like, this is the best thing I've ever felt. So for you as a teenager, that whole time you hadn't shaved your legs and you finally did, describe that moment where you're like, whoa.
Yeah. I was 19.
What was it like?
It was terrible because your skin, one, we weren't really allowed to use lotion or anything. So your skin's never been exposed to a shaver. So you have shave bumps from shaving. And you think about your underarms, like if you've never like shaved them, those are pretty long.
Yeah.
And, you kind of need a haircut before you even shave. And so, I probably was shaving for over an hour, just trying to like.
Oh my gosh. Hell, literally. Hell. Okay, so what is your plan that you come up with? Where are you going to live? How are you going to make money? What do you do after, okay, I've been out for a day. Now I got to get serious. Like, how am I going to survive?
Yeah, so amazing the way that those steps were just kind of like roll out in front of me. The guy that we went to his house, he called people that I didn't know, but he knew them, and it was a married couple, and they had left, a few years before, very well established. And he's like, hey, a whole bunch of people just left. Would you guys, and I don't know why he chose me, but he did. Would you guys be open to having someone, come live with you guys for a bit until they, get going? And
were these people ex-Amish also?
Yeah. And I still don't know why he chose me. I have no idea why I was the one out of the whole group that left. He was like, would you want to go live with them? And he asked them. And they, I got to meet them, and they were like, yeah, you can live here for $50 a month. That's your rent. And we'll help you get your social security number because we don't have social security. So we'll help you get that. We'll help you get your driver's license. We'll help you get your car. And once all of that's established, then, you can move out. And I was like, okay. And so I got a job 2 days after I left as a dishwasher at a restaurant. That was my first job.
You're probably the best dishwasher they ever had.
100%. Except now I get to use an actual dishwasher, not everything by hand. But anyway.
Was it intimidating to you seeing technology, using technology?
Yes. Yes, so intimidating. And the reality
by the
is,
way,
like,
what year was this, can I ask, when you had escaped at 19?
So it was in 2004. And, I got that job 2 days after I left. But the reality is I had never had a job in my life, and I'm 19 years old. And so I have to learn, one, how to be around people that are not Amish, how to speak English. English is terrible. And then two, just learning how to be responsible with a job. And the good thing is we're hard workers, so we learn really quickly. But I didn't have a social security number, so they had to pay me under the table until I had that.
Ah, okay.
So my first paycheck was like $50, and I was like, oh my God, I'm so rich. I go to like a garage sale to like get stuff, because garage selling is something we did as Amish people. And I like blow almost the whole thing, and I was like, oh wait, $50 doesn't go very far here. I gotta support myself and not like blow it on dumb stuff.
And that was your rent.
Yeah.
That was your rent for the month too. What were your initial thoughts of the world after you had escaped? It's been a few months now. You're living in it. You're experiencing it. You're communicating with the English. What's your impression?
Well, first of all, it's freedom. But also, I started to realize how little I knew. And so I did a lot of pretending, even when I was still at home. because there was a lot that I didn't agree with. And so I was very good at sneaking around. And so then after I left, I also realized, I was like, there is a crap load of stuff that I don't know. And I started pretending again. Like if I was having a conversation with someone and I didn't understand what they were saying, instead of saying like, I don't understand what you're saying, can you explain? I would just agree.
Because we all do that, Lizzie, even now.
No, now I'm like, no, I don't know what you're saying. Can you explain? Because I don't have trouble with that anymore. I don't care if I'm like, no, I really don't know what you're saying. I want to know why. But that's took time. But it's really, it is a huge culture shock because you start realizing like how sheltered you actually were.
Had your family or your twin or anybody attempted to get in communication with you at all after you had left?
Yeah. So a few months, I think, after I had left, I had not been in communication with any of them. And my mom found out where I was working. So my twin and my mom came. They were down there doing something, and they stopped by the restaurant that I was working at. And the owner was there. And, they're like, hey, we want to talk to Lizzie. And I was in the middle of work. And so the owner was nice and was like, all right, you guys sit down here and you guys can come talk to him. And of course, like their talking was like trying to convince me to come back.
Yeah.
So I was in communication then. And then eventually it was long enough where the owner was like, all right, she needs to get back to work. And so they left. And, my mom's just heartbroken because like her kid ran away. And I'm a mom now. So like I get it. I'm like, if my kid would run away, I'd be devastated. So she thinks that she's the problem and that she did something wrong. And it took a few years for me to kind of convince her and say, like, had nothing to do with you. Like, we're adults and we're making a decision here. And this was my decision.
You began studying for the GED. And in that process, you sort of began to discover what you were and still are really passionate about. Can you talk about what you became passionate about and why while you were studying?
Yeah. So when I was studying for my GED, my teacher was so incredibly helpful and nice. And I'm learning things that I had never been exposed to: science, algebra, history. And I still don't get algebra, but
I don't either.
History, I was kind of like, this doesn't pertain to me. I didn't want, like, it didn't interest me. Now it does, but back then it didn't.
Yeah.
Science, really, I got. I was like, the understanding of how certain things work, like that really, really like caught my interest. And then, while I was in studying, I was at work actually one day, and I hear this commercial, and in my thoughts, I'm always thinking like, what do I want to do? I worked at a nursing home, and people are like, you'd be a really good nurse. You could go to school and become a nurse. But I didn't feel drawn to it. And I literally like hear this commercial on TV, and I like flip my head around and I look at it, and they were talking about nutrition and something about school. And I literally like looked at the TV and I was like, that's what I'm going to be. That's what I want to do. And that was sort of like the turning point of like, one day I'm going to be helping people with that. I just didn't know how I was going to do it.
Because initially you had kind of struggled with weight and body image and things like that growing up, and it all just kind of came full circle.
Yeah, I was just naturally I naturally gravitated towards it and wanting to understand it for myself and then also to help other people.
How long did it take for you to feel totally, fully acclimated in the English world?
I have no idea.
Could have been years, could have been months.
Could have been years. It was definitely years, not months, because it took me a long time to, feel confident in who I am. And I would even say even in the last, 3 to 4 years, I've grown substantially, because 3 years ago, I would have never talked about this. Well, that's not true. I did a local talk one time for a company, and I did talk about it then, but it was different. But the way that I talk about it now is more in a form of like, I love talking about it, and I'm proud of where I come from. It was an experience, and you can learn from it, and it's made me who I am, and I'm not ashamed about it anymore. And that's what I love about it now, is like owning who you are and allowing that to shine through.
Did you end up needing therapy or anything to deal with the transition that you went through leaving the Amish community?
I never went to therapy specifically, but I've had coaches in my life. Not for a long time. I've had people that I was close to that mentored me, definitely, and that was really helpful, but not until in the last couple years, actually. I was in a coaching program, and in that program, there was a life coach and a mindset coach, and those two people transformed me and helped me actually like uncover things I didn't even know that I was like still kind of hiding.
Like what?
Things about my past and like the way that I did things to protect myself, because we all do things to protect ourselves. And why are we doing that? And then, growing from that. And I didn't realize how much I was still doing that and how much that was kind of holding me back from speaking my truth. I don't know if to this day, if I would be speaking about my journey and my experience, if it wasn't for them in my life. Because the one guy told me, he was like, you need to talk about your story. You need to talk about your experience, because that's where people will connect with you. And I was like, who's going to connect with an ex-Amish girl? What? You're crazy. And he was right.
Have you had ex-Amish people reach out to you like, oh my gosh, I thought I was the only one?
Yes, but not as much as people that are not actually from the Amish, people that come from other religions that have had very similar experiences with the confinement and the rules, and then leaving and their family, disowning them. I've had a lot of people reach out to me about that.
How would you describe the Amish? I mean, is it to you a religion? Is it a cult?
I think it's a little bit of both. It's definitely a religion, but, I think it depends who you talk to. It definitely has cultish aspects. I'm careful how I throw that word around.
Sure.
So that's sort of like where I'm like, yes, it's cultish, but I don't know if I would specifically just call it a cult. Because it's very much
cultish.
It's cultish.
That's a good way to say it. How did you meet your now husband?
We met when we still lived in Ohio. We went to the same church there, and we played co-ed volleyball there, and that's where we met.
So he was Amish too?
No.
Oh.
He grew up all over. He was born in California, lived in Canada for a few years with his parents, and then they moved to Ohio, and that's where we connected.
Have you spoken to anyone from your family since leaving?
Mm-hmm. Yep. I usually see my mom about once a year.
Really? Mm-hmm. And so does she fly to see you? I know you...
No, they can't fly.
Oh, that's right. That's right. No flying. So you're going there. You have to go to Ohio.
Mm-hmm. When I lived there, I would see her multiple times a year. But now since I'm out here, I usually see her. I go back about once a year, and I make a point to go see her.
We actually live in the same city. I live in Scottsdale too. So Lizzie lives in Scottsdale with me. We both live in Arizona now.
Oh yeah, we can become besties.
I know, we should. We should hang out outside of the podcast, because I just love you. I think you're hilarious. You're very funny. Okay, so here's the other thing. Do you bring your kid around when you go visit your family? Do you let him play with your family, your Amish family members and stuff? Yeah. And is your kid, who's grown up in this day and age and with technology and everything, is he used to what it's like when he goes to visit grandma and grandpa? Or is he like, this is weird, Mom? I don't know how old your kid is.
Well, he's 3, so he doesn't understand it yet. I've taken him every year since he was born, and my mom loves it. I didn't get pregnant for a long time, and she was always kind of like, when are you going to have kids? Because that's what they do. And I would just laugh at her. But I take him every year that I go in, and she loves getting to see him. He doesn't really understand it. He doesn't really know how to receive it, because it's so foreign. And he'll play, with whatever they have around. But as far as like playing with his cousins that are there, he hasn't really done that yet. But I have a sister that also left, and she lives in Ohio. And her kids are older, and they go there all the time. They play together. Like, it's not, I think that sometimes it depends on a family too. Like my mom, she's the sweetest person ever. And
Did she just miss you so much that she just said, I don't care that you left the Amish community. I want you in my life?
Yeah, she will do everything she can to make sure that we still come home to see her because, there's been incidents that happened where my twin's husband was like, you can't ever come visit us again.
I was wondering if you talked to your twin too.
I haven't talked to her in 8 or 9 years.
I'm sorry.
But the last time I went to their house, he was like, you can't come here anymore. Our kids are not allowed to see you like this.
So she stayed in the Amish community.
But when my mom found out that that's what he said, she was devastated because she was like, she doesn't want anything to come in between us actually coming and seeing her. Because she's like, nobody gets to, like the church has talked to her about like, you shouldn't let your kids come home the way they do, all that stuff. And she's like, the church, nobody gets to tell me that I can't love my kids. They're still my kids. And nobody gets to tell me that I can't see them. And
good for her.
I'm like, good for you, Mom.
Yeah.
Like, I'm rooting for you. Like one day, maybe you'll
leave too.
Maybe you'll.
Do you try to tell her that? You say, hey, you can come to Arizona?
She wouldn't receive it well from me. Like if I would be like, hey, you need to get out of here. She'd be like.
Do you think she's happy there or she just doesn't know anything else?
She knows other things because, she sees us.
Yeah.
It's me, a sister of mine, 2 of my brothers.
I was wondering, so your twin stayed in, but you have so many siblings. Did other people leave?
Yeah. So I have a sister and 2 brothers that left, and she sees us. And, I think that she's really proud of, who we've become. And she's always happy to see us, even if she doesn't say that. And so I think part of her is sort of like inspired by it. And I think that she sees that we're happy and part of her wants that too. And, I hope that one day her eyes can be open to what the church is actually doing to her.
Well, let's talk about who you have become, because we know you're a wife and you're a mother, but and what else have you accomplished that your mom is proud of?
Well, I stayed out of jail. She's very proud of that.
That's a good one for any parent.
That was legitimately a fear of hers.
I'm sure it was. Yeah. I mean, if they think like everything's so corrupt and stuff, yeah, they probably do think you're just going to end up in jail.
I think she's very proud that I actually did become a mom because I think she was like, I don't think Lizzie's going to do it. But she also they don't understand what I actually do.
Which
like
is, it has to do with the nutrition stuff that you're into, right? Like, so explain that.
So I'm a personal trainer and I'm a health coach. And so I help people like get healthier. And that's such a foreign concept to them. Like
it's a foreign concept to me. I was saying earlier to somebody, I am naturally thin, but I am the fattest skinny person you will ever meet. My insides are rot. I live off chicken nuggets and Dr. Pepper. You would be appalled if you saw my pantry, Lizzie.
One day is probably going to catch up with you.
Oh, that's what everybody says. I'm just crossing my fingers. I have the world's greatest metabolism or something.
Or that.
You have a whole Instagram community of people that go to you for health advice and stuff, and then you just slowly but surely did start saying like, hey, by the way, I escaped the Amish.
Yeah.
So talk about that, how you're like, maybe I should like dibble dabble and throw this in there, because it was because of you doing that one of the cute conservatives actually came, and I wish I could remember her name, but she came across your profile. She sent it to Politics, my daily show, and said, hey, you have got to have this girl on the Spillover. I want to hear a whole in-depth interview about her leaving the Amish. And so that's why you're here, is because somebody discovered you.
That's amazing. I want to know who that person is too.
I know, me too. They should share in their 5-star review at the end of this, if I'm the one. So tell us.
So I started talking about it a little bit last summer. I had no idea what was going to happen, but there was one particular reel that went way viral.
And what were you saying in the reel?
I basically said 3 things. I said, these are the 3 things that I did not have when I left. my social security number. I don't know what the other two were at the moment, but that was one, and then it was 2 other ones, and that went crazy, and I was like, this is nuts, like this is crazy. And so from there, I was like, wow, like people really want to learn about this. But what's interesting is now, like I do consultations with people that come to me and they want to work with me, and they're like, oh yeah, you know what's funny? I found you because of your Amish stuff, and then I learned what you actually do.
Yeah.
And they're like, you're a real person. Like they're like, I like who you are. And so it's been really fun, and I like it. I like talking about it.
What are some misconceptions as we wrap up about the Amish community that bother you? Or are they all true?
No, they're not all true.
Okay.
The one that probably bothers me the most is that everybody has this idea that there's a name Rumspringa that a lot of people are familiar with. I can tell by your face that you're not familiar with.
Never heard of it.
The term Rumspringa means when you're 16, 17, 18 in the dating world, like you're allowed to go party, drive a car, dress in non-Amish clothes. Some Amish orders, they're allowed to do that. Where I'm from, they're not. And so, I've had some things that I've shared, other Amish people that didn't understand where I was coming from.
They doubted your story.
They doubted my story. And
that
would
like, piss me off.
Yeah. And so they're like, you're lying. That's not true. And so for a while there, I had to over and over and over be like, this is my story. This has nothing to do with any other orders of Amish. But now I'm at that point where I'm like, I've said it enough. It's fine.
Would you say that you are still the same person from before your escape, or totally different?
Totally different.
How so?
Well, for one, I'm confident in who I am, and I can hold my head up and speak.
Yes, girl.
I know what I believe in, because the women there are very much, what's the word? They're sheltered for one, and then submissive. Like that's the word. We're just like, put your head down. You don't have men have way more say in things than women. And men are kind of the ones that are making the rules of the church. Like the women don't have much say in the rules of the church. So if they come up with a new rule, it's usually a guy. So, I think that part of me, I have to be careful that I'm not super dominant over my husband, because I have a personality of like taking control.
Same. I mean, I'm not married yet, but that's like, I talk about that constantly to my current boyfriend. And I'm like, if we get married, that I really do want you to be like the head of the house and like leading in that way. But I am going to struggle with that, because I am very much like, I like to be the boss and tell people what to do and kind of take over. But it's hard sometimes for women, I think, especially mouthy women like me, to let someone else do that,
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's fine, if you have balance with it, but, just understanding that you have a voice, that, you don't have to, just put your head down and be quiet about everything.
Well, I am really, really just awe-inspired by you, and impressed and really proud of you for being like, hey, you know what? I'm going to start sharing this part of my story. Because I know for some people, you hold on for years and years and years, something like this. And I think by sharing it, not only is it freeing for you, but incredible for other people. And like you said, that's a really good, clickbaity thing for you to be like, I'm an ex-Amish person, here's my escape story. Also, let me help you get fit. I mean, it's smart business work. Come on, you're not an idiot. So I think that's great. And you're one of my favorite guests that I've had. I don't ever say that to people in the moment, but I genuinely have enjoyed this conversation. It's been so fun, funny, inspiring, lots of heart. It's great. And what is your Instagram so conservatives can find you and follow you?
Yeah, at Lizzie, Lizzie, Ens, ENS.
ENS.
Mm-hmm. So it's 2 E's. Lizzie Ens.
Thank you, Lizzie, for coming on the Spillover.
Thank you for having me.
adored her, loved her, obsessed with her, want to be her best friend, dead serious. She's like gorgeous, is she not? If you are listening to this, like the podcast version, you have to go to her Instagram and see what she looks like. Oh my gosh, 10 out of 10, stunning. And so we have a makeup girl, Ramona, by the way, who's incredible. If you live in the Scottsdale or Phoenix area and you need a makeup artist, you can DM me and I'll give you Miss Ramona's information because we love a cute conservative makeup artist. But we have her come in to do my makeup for the Spillover episodes and our guests. And Lizzie, even without makeup, just a dime. And I love that there was just this powerful theme in Lizzie's story of resilience, hope, and having the courage to change course even when the odds can feel like they're stacked against you. But man, she made it work, didn't she? I freaking love her. If this is the first time that you've ever listened to the Spillover and you already can't get enough, if you loved Lizzie's story, there's like, I don't know what number we're at now, 27, 28, something in there, 20-something episodes of people with amazing jaw-dropping stories that you need to go back and listen to. And you need to make sure that you actually hit the subscribe button because then you will have your phone or whatever update automatically when new episodes are spilled. And you better leave a 5-star review because not only do I read all the reviews, but my bosses see them too. And since this podcast is free and not on Patreon or something, I don't make you pay for it. That's the best way that you can support us, okay? It's the least you can do, I think. Thank you so much. I love you. New episodes of The Spillover come out every Thursday at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Or you can watch the episode on the Politics YouTube channel like I talked about. You can participate in the live chat when these drop at midnight Eastern. It's super fun. Be there every Thursday or be square. I'm Alex Clark, and this is The Spillover. Love you, mean it. Bye. This chick legit named her daughter Poot. She said it's unique. Oh my gosh, is it actually a cute name for real, or is this chick out of her mind?
Dad, I'm hungry.
Hi, Hungry. I'm Dad.
Why did you name me this way?
Kim Kardashian has been trying to save a woman from death row in Texas, claiming that she's innocent, even though she most definitely killed her daughter. Now, Kim's deleted the tweets. I'll give you the receipts on that. Remember Jeanette McCurdy from iCarly and Sam and Cat? She wrote a memoir, and the title of it has pissed off a lot of people. This woman was fired from her job for saying Vice President Kamala Harris's outfit looked like a UPS uniform. And then we'll time travel and see what happened this week in pop culture history with the Pop Culture Rewind. I'm Alex Clark, and this is Politics. You may have seen some tweets from Kim Kardashian lately asking the state of Texas to save a woman named Melissa Lucio from death row. But man, is this juicy. Buckle up.
I'm nervous, but I'm excited.
The story about Melissa Lucio starts in 2007 when paramedics were called to the Lucio home because Melissa's youngest of 14 children, 2-year-old Mariah, wasn't breathing. Melissa told paramedics that Mariah had fallen down the stairs a few days earlier, which is why she must have stopped breathing, insinuating that she had succumbed to her injuries. Mariah was pronounced dead on arrival at the hospital. The thing is, Mariah had multiple telltale signs of abuse on her body. Bite marks, whole patches of hair that had been pulled out, and even a broken arm that doctors determined had actually been broken anywhere from 2 to 7 weeks before the supposed stairs incident.
Well, that's suspicious.
Mariah's autopsy also showed tons of internal injuries, like bruising on her kidneys, injuries to her spinal cord, lungs, and a head injury. I mean, falling down the stairs? We've all heard that excuse before from someone trying to cover up abuse. The thing is, Melissa's confession wasn't exactly rock solid. She ended up saying, I guess I did it after 7 hours of grueling interrogation where she wasn't allowed to eat or drink. This led to groups like the Innocence Project and others insinuating that Melissa was wrongfully convicted of murder and sentenced to death, and that Melissa's behavior during the interrogation was just because she is a victim of abuse herself. They've also been using the diversity excuse as to why Melissa should be let off the hook since, she's the only Latina woman on death row, because that matters.
What does that have to do with anything?
Long story short, Melissa is scheduled to be executed on April 27th, as in a few weeks. A couple days ago, Kim Kardashian called Governor Abbott asking for clemency. Kim has also been tweeting this week about how Melissa is innocent and her daughter died in a tragic, traumatizing accident that could happen to anyone.
I just feel so bad.
This has led to a lot of criticism on Kim's part, mainly because she's clearly an idiot. Kim has now deleted her tweets insisting Melissa's innocent, since she probably realized that there is no question we've got a child murderer on our hands.
That's awkward.
The moral of the story is, don't trust Kim Kardashian and her advocacy for criminals.
I wasted everyone's time. I wasted everyone's money. I wasted everyone's everything, and I feel bad.
If you're watching politics, then you most likely grew up watching iCarly or Sam and Cat, so you should know who Jeanette McCurdy is.
It is about April Fools!
She recently announced the title of her new book, a memoir, and a lot of people are super offended by the title she chose. It's called I'm Glad My Mom Died.
Oh, wow. That's really disturbing.
Is it spicy? Yeah, but I actually love this title. Let me explain. A lot of people don't know this, but she had a really messed up childhood and essentially only became an actress because her mom, who was super abusive, forced her to. When Jeanette was 6, her mom became obsessed with the idea of her becoming a star. She was even bleaching her daughter's hair and whitening her teeth before she even turned 10. She was extremely strict with Jeanette's eating habits, eventually causing Jeanette to develop multiple eating disorders. Her mom never allowed her to shower alone, even as a teenager, and her mom performed breast and vaginal exams on her herself. In 2013, Jeanette's mom, Debbie, died of cancer, leading to Jeanette finally quitting acting for good, getting therapy, and eventually writing this memoir.
I'm on board.
I think the title is freaking brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I hope she spills. Just placed my pre-order last night, so I will be reading. She clearly knows how a good provocative title will sell and get attention, so I think it's perfect. I love dark humor. I've always liked Jeanette. So my question is, do you like the title for this, or do you think it's too much?
Never do that again!
You're not the boss of me.
I followed conservative commentator Amber Athey for a while on Twitter. She's the Washington editor for The Spectator magazine's World Edition and also had a regular spot on DC talk station WMAL. But she doesn't anymore. That's because she was fired after a tweet that made fun of Vice President Kamala Harris's outfit at the State of the Union.
I think we should have that conversation.
Remember that hideous brown suit she wore? On March 1st, Amber tweeted, Kamala looks like a UPS employee. What can brown do for you? Nothing good, apparently. According to the New York Post, Amber tweeted critically a few days later about people in favor of trans kids. And that's when left-wing activists started coming for her. They combed her Twitter trying to find anything they could to get her fired from her job and sent dozens of emails to her employers demanding Amber face consequences. One of the tweets they claimed proved her racism was the joke about the vice president.
I'm sorry, what?
Amber said all of a sudden, the Kamala tweet was being reframed as racist and dozens of Twitter accounts were bragging about contacting my employers about my bigotry. At first, all of her colleagues laughed it off and deleted the complaint emails. But then 8 days after the tweet, Amber was contacted out of the blue by Jeff Bowden, the vice president of station owner Cumulus Washington and their human resources vice president. She said, they told me that the tweet I sent about Kamala was racist and that subsequent follow-ups defending myself and making fun of the efforts to cancel me were unacceptable. I had violated the company's social media policy, they said, and I was terminated effective immediately.
Whoa.
I heard there's a new movement coming. Brown clothes matter. Anyone who makes fun of the color brown or is white and wears brown is racist.
That is really racist.
All right. Time to see what happened this week in pop culture history with a Pop Culture Rewind Time Machine. This week in 1968, Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated by James Earl Ray in Memphis, Tennessee, and the entire country grieved.
Eyewitnesses to the assassination say that Dr. King left his room
3:06 at the Lorraine Hotel just before dinner to get some air. He walked over to the railing at this spot, and noticing some friends below, he leaned over and began to speak with them. Police say 205 feet away, in a window in a flop house, the assassin waited.
In 1994, this week, the lead singer of Nirvana, Kurt Cobain, committed suicide and was found 3 days later. His legacy lives on by teenagers who wear Nirvana shirts but can't name a single song. A little true crime for you. In 1996, this week, the Unabomber, Ted Kaczynski, was captured at his cabin in Montana.
April 3rd, 1996, 20 years ago today. The day the FBI arrested Theodore Kaczynski, the suspected Unabomber, at his cabin in rural Montana.
And everyone's favorite animal lover, the crocodile hunter, came on the scene in 1997 this week with the debut of his show, The Crocodile Hunter, on Animal Planet. I really hope Steve Irwin didn't force any of his crocodiles to have brown scales. That would be racist.
Whew. Danger, danger, danger.
And that's what happened this week in pop culture history. The brand new episode of The Spillover that comes out tonight at 9 p.m. Pacific and midnight Eastern is with a guest discussing a topic that you guys requested. You said, Alex, I really want you to talk to someone who lived through this. So I found someone. And the interview has ended up being one of my favorites because not only is it deeply moving and interesting, some parts are honestly just hilarious. Get ready to find all about a way of life that is a really big mystery to a lot of people tonight on The Spillover. Don't forget to heart this politics episode. Tell me whether you like or dislike Jeanette's memoir title, and if it's not just brown that Kamala can't pull off, but pantsuits in general. DM this episode to your friend who also used to watch iCarly and click that save button for us, okay? Thank you, worms. We're back tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. It's pop culture without the propaganda every single day. I'm Alex Clark, and this is Politics. Clearly, Politics is best served visually, but you can also listen to Politics if you just want the audio. Subscribe to us anywhere you get your podcasts: Apple, Spotify, iHeart, TuneIn, and more. Also, make sure that if you are listening to the podcast version, you leave us a 5-star review. And don't forget, subscribe to Politics on YouTube.